My entitled friend has been secretly stealing my perfume every single time she comes over, but now that I've confronted her and humiliated her in front of my entire friend group, my friends have now basically turned on me and saying that I'm being insensitive to my friend's struggles, as they're essentially trying to dismiss the fact that she stole from me in a way that not only makes no sense, but is also incredibly insulting, and right now I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. I'm a 35-year-old female and I collect perfume. I'm also a recovering alcoholic, and so is everybody else in this story. My ex-best friend, who I will call Bethany, is 30 years old and also loves perfume. In fact, we met in a recovery group and bonded over trading fragrance samples. Now, I own some scents that she loves but can't afford it. Over the years, she's asked if I would mind decanting a few for her, and because scents expire and there's a limit to how much you can reasonably use at a time, in all but like one case, I happily filled up travel atomizers for free. The only exception was this one bottle that really meant a lot to me. I bought this bottle to mark my first 6 months of sobriety, and it's been a powerful association with that achievement for me. When she asked for a sample of this special bottle, I said that she could get them free from Bloomingdale's, but because of the emotional significance of my bottle, I wanted it to last as long as possible. Well, Bethany then accused me of gatekeeping and apparently being insecure about anybody else smelling like me. But I responded by snapping back by saying that if that were the case, I would not have shared every other scent that I own with her. Well, later on she apologized. I accepted it and things went back to normal. That is, until I invited her and a few other friends over for a movie night. When I walked into my bedroom, I smelled the special sobriety perfume that I had, and I immediately suspected that Bethany had used it, but of course I had no proof, so I just held my tongue. But then the next time we met up, I smelled the perfume on her. I asked her if she had bought a bottle, but she said that she got a sample like I suggested. But something about the way she said it and the look on her face made me sure that she was wearing my perfume. I then pulled away and didn't have her over again until Halloween, when I had all of our mutual friends over and I couldn't really exclude her without it being a big problem. Well, halfway through the night, she went to the bathroom and was gone for a long time. When I checked on her, the sobriety perfume was missing from my dresser, and I could smell it through the bathroom door. So I said that I knew she was stealing my perfume again, but she claimed that she was sick and sprayed her sample to hide the smell. At this point, one of our other friends came to see what was happening, and I said I didn't care if she was crapping herself. If she didn't come out immediately, I would toss her purse in the trash so she could dumpster dive until she smelled just like the garbage friend that she was. Well, that finally got her to open up, and sure enough, there was my bottle emptier than before. When she was pressed about it, she admitted that she was filling up an atomizer and dropped it, spilling the perfume, hence the strong smell. She then cried and apologized, saying that she didn't think it was a big deal. She was having a hard time and the smell was comforting. Also, she didn't think that I would miss just a little thing. While our friends agree that what she did was wrong, they're fixated on the idea that she was struggling and that trauma and addiction can make people act up, saying that I'm a hypocrite if I don't forgive her. Personally though, I just think she wanted my perfume because it has sentimental value, and she's just using her addiction and all of her problems as like a way of manipulating our friends. So seriously, am I at fault here? Like, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, let me put this bluntly. First off, no, you're not the jerk. But secondly, the second I find out that anyone's stealing from me in my own home, that's the moment they are no longer friends with me and I don't want anything to do with them. Seriously, that is absolutely uncalled for and there's no excuse for that. Not to mention the fact that this bottle is not just a bottle of perfume. This is something that is sentimental to you that literally marks your sobriety. So for this lady to disrupt that and be like, oh, I just want to take some of it. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just draining away the thing that's reminding you to be sober. Like, dude, what a crappy friend. And no, her addiction and problems in life is not a good enough excuse for anyone to be like, oh wow, she's struggling. Because it's like, dude, what are you talking about? This is not her struggling. This is her being a thief. This is her literally stepping over your boundaries and stealing from you while almost doing it in like this smug, satisfied way. Like, that is so crappy, it's just not even funny. So no, you're not the jerk. This is absolutely on your friend. And the fact that the rest of your friends are basically missing the point here is truly a good tell that the rest of these people probably suck too, because this quite literally is not your fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend makes me feel like the cash cow of the family, as she quit her job to pursue a hobby, thus putting me in a really weird situation where I simply don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I really need an outside perspective because my resentment is hitting a breaking point. We've been together for like 6 years and we have 2 toddlers, and we live in Germany, so it's not totally unusual to not be married. Now, my girlfriend used to have a secure, high-paying state job, but she decided to quit and open up a hobby shop focused on coaching and spirituality. And of course, I supported her, but it's not working out well. The business is failing to gain traction. I really thought she would be happy with that since it was her dream, but instead she is stressed out and angry. So now I'm currently covering us financially, but we're at a point where our lifestyles need to downgrade significantly just to make this work. Despite her business struggling and needing more time to develop it, she refuses to send our kids to a standard kindergarten with normal hours. Instead, she insisted on a private one that closes at 2:00 p.m. And with this, it created a cycle. She says she can't work enough to fix her business because the kids are home by early afternoon. Then she blames me for not doing 50% of the childcare, even though I work a full-time job to support us. She claims she does much more than me. But here's the thing, I take over immediately after work. And at this point, I feel like I'm burning the candle at both ends. On top of this, suddenly she's pressuring me into getting married. She openly admits she is realizing she is not financially secure for the future, all because of her career pivot, and she wants the security of marriage. And if I'm being honest, it feels like a transaction, not any kind of romantic progression. She wants me to be grateful for the situation, but I feel completely trapped. And with all things considered, right now I feel used, entitled, and unappreciated. I'm hesitant to marry someone when the relationship feels so unbalanced. So I need to know, has anyone dealt with a partner who sabotages their work time, but then blames you for the lack of support? We are seeing a couples therapist, and it helps a bit, but I have the feeling that I can't really carry the unbalance of the relationship. The therapist seems to believe that I'm the typical, oh, I only work kind of guy, even though I cook 95% of the dinners, I do the groceries, and I take care of the kids as much as possible, because right now I'm really stressed out and I just don't know what to do. Okay, in my mind, it really seems like she needs to go back to her regular job and the kids go back to a regular daycare. Like seriously, this seems so backwards. She's complaining about you not helping out with the kids, but then the kids are back at the house at like 2:00 in the afternoon. Like seriously, that's so weird in my opinion. Because it sounds like there's other programs you could sign them up for where it would make things a lot easier for the both of you. Especially when your girlfriend gets a normal job again, which from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like that needs to happen. So yeah, I would be stressed out too if I was in your shoes. And I know for a fact marriage would be the last thing on my mind right now. Like, dude, we got to get our life figured out. And part of that is her getting a job again. Like, that absolutely needs to go back to normal because this isn't working and it's driving you insane. And I think you're justified in feeling that way. My entitled father tries to claim that I was only working on Christmas because I was being greedy, as he simply wouldn't understand that I was required to work during Christmas Day simply because my job needed me there, which also gave my husband the perfect opportunity to shut him down. Here's what happened. My father, the longtime jerk and someone I almost went no contact with until I had my kid 10 years ago, was at my house for Christmas this year. He and my mom often stay with us because he has health issues that make a hotel less than ideal. Now, my dad worked a regular job in the trades for a couple of decades before starting a business, so it shouldn't be news to him that people can't just choose their hours as they please, but apparently it is. I work shift work in a 24-hour non-medical emergency service. We have a set schedule and blackout dates for time off. I work the week of Christmas all-day shift, which was also every day my parents were here. My 10-year-old wasn't super thrilled about it, but they understood. And they managed just fine with their dad there and their grandparents and their cousins, as well as their aunts and uncles. Now, one of the days my parents were there, my dad was talking to my husband and repeatedly called me greedy for working, saying that I was only working so I could get extra money. Well, my husband apparently laid into him and reminded him that jobs don't work like that. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to work those days, and magically you don't have to do it anymore. And trust me, this is by far not the worst thing my dad has ever said about me, but definitely the worst he said about me to my husband. And as a bonus, he spent a lot of the time while visiting saying how kids always have their faces in a screen, and he was saying this loudly in front of my kid and some of the other kids. Never mind that the kids were using the screen to learn a dance, or that my 10-year-old is only on screens to socialize with their friends, or play the occasional phone game. And also, never mind the fact that he's glued to his computer screen for hours every visit, and if not the computer screen, then guess what? He's watching the TV. So, in addition to missing their mom on Christmas, I had to explain a few times to my child that first of all, Grandpa is a jerk. Secondly, Grandpa is objectively wrong about them always having their nose in a screen. And third, that we as their parents have no issue with the amount of screen time they log. So while that definitely dampened the mood, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not entirely surprised. Yeah, that's a really weird entitled take in my opinion. This guy literally sees you work in emergency services of some kind that's on a 24-hour schedule, and he's really trying to be like, oh, you're so greedy, you're only working because you want money. And it's like, no, dude, I'm required to do it. Like, what are you talking about? I have no choice. If I don't do it, I get fired. Like, what do you want? So good for your husband for stepping up for you, man. That is honestly like the best thing to do here, because your dad was completely out of line, but from the sounds of it, this is not entirely surprising. My grandma's entitled rude friend has been staying at my house with us for over 8 days now. And right now, I really feel like I'm at my breaking point because this woman is rude and literally refuses to mind her own business, putting me in a situation where I simply don't know what to do next. Here's what's happening. To start things out, I'm a 28-year-old female and I live with my grandma. She doesn't live with me because of any health issues or anything like that, but instead we genuinely prefer living together rather than being separated. And trust me, I really enjoy living with her. She's kind to me, she never crosses boundaries, and we are really close. We also laugh and joke around a lot. She braids my hair while I gossip about boys or my day at work, and she sometimes cooks my favorite meals when I'm feeling upset. Our living situation was really peaceful and enjoyable. So this all started at my cousin's wedding, where my sister, my grandma, and myself were invited. It was a very traditional wedding and honestly kind of cute, but the after party was a hot mess. Everyone was dancing, it was loud, and I was already exhausted from the wedding. There was a weird tradition where the bride's family dances while everyone claps, and then the groom's family does the same. And since I'm family of the groom, I was also asked to dance. But I really didn't want to. I was tired and my dress was really tight, but my grandma convinced me to do so, so I did. I don't think I did that bad, but after it was over and I sat back down, an older woman I don't even know turned her head and looked me up and down and said, "You don't dance that often, do you?" And the way she said that was really rude and judgmental. Now, I just laughed it off to avoid starting drama, and then I told my sister and she told me to ignore it, and that's exactly what I did. What I didn't expect, however, was that after the wedding, my grandma invited this same woman to come home with us. At first, I assumed that it was just a ride or that she would stay the night and leave, but when we got home, I excused myself and went straight to sleep while she talked to my grandma. The next morning, she was still there. I left for work, and when I came back, she was still there again. I then finally pulled my grandma aside and I asked her what was going on. She then told me that this woman was a guest and would be staying for a couple of days. And when I was told this, I was upset because I was never asked or even informed beforehand that this would be happening. This is my house and I feel like I deserve a say in who stays here. Well, it has now been 8 long days and she is still here. She constantly inserts herself into my personal life and gives unsolicited opinions. If I complain about cramps, she tells me that maybe I should work out more. If I'm crying to my grandma about something stressful that happened at work, she jumps in and tells me to suck it up and stop crying because I'm an adult. But I never ask her for advice or opinions. Instead, she just butts in and says whatever she wants. And just to be clear, I have not been rude to her. I don't argue with her, I don't snap. I've only vented privately to my grandma, my sister, and boyfriend about how uncomfortable and frustrated that I feel. Well, instead of understanding, they tell me that I'm being a jerk and that I'm rude, which feels insane to me because all I've done is express how bothered I am by someone overstaying in my house and disrespecting me repeatedly. So am I the jerk for supposedly being rude to this house guest that I don't even want here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, bro, I would be finding any excuse to get her out of the house. There's no way I would be okay with this. And I will say there is a possibility that there might be some kind of like cultural difference here because the original poster noted that no, they're not from the United States. So I totally understand there might be something I'm missing here from the culture they live in, but from my perspective as an American, this is crazy. If I own the house that I'm living in and my grandma's staying there with me, then in my opinion, if she wants to bring someone in for like a temporary stay, then she needs to run that by me first before it happens. I don't want to come home and be like, oh, the rude woman who insulted my dancing is here and she hasn't left for over a week. This is great. I'm so excited. Like, no, dude, I'd be so pissed off. I would want her gone immediately. But instead, I've got to deal with her for 8 days. Like, dude, that sounds miserable. And it's also weird that these people are like, oh, wow, you're so rude for not wanting her here. I can't believe you're being so mean to her. But it's like, bro, I don't even talk to this lady. Like, literally, I go home, I go to sleep, and I go right back to work work, and I talk to my grandma somewhere between all of these things happening. And yet this lady, who's clearly overstaying her welcome, just butts into my conversations and says, "Oh, suck it up, you're an adult." Like, bro, I would go crazy dealing with this. I would hate this so much because this not only violates my own privacy, but it's also obnoxious. So no, you're not the jerk for being annoyed by this, and in my opinion, I would start having the conversation of like, okay, it's time for her to go. She doesn't have to go home, but she definitely cannot stay in my house any longer. Because in my opinion, this is slowly but surely becoming a permanent engagement. And I'm pretty sure from the sounds of it, that is not something the original poster wants in the slightest. My father and my sister officially disowned me right before Christmas, putting me in a scenario that is heartbreaking and incredibly infuriating. Because right now, I don't know what to do and I don't know how to address this. Here's what happened. Okay, to get right to the point, this Christmas, my dad and my sister officially disowned me. On a separate subreddit, I believe I posted about the fact that I stopped talking to them previously about 2 years ago. Our relationship was finally starting to get better, up until the point my sister talked to him about the house that my mom and I were going to buy from her. We weren't under the impression that it was going to be an issue. So it was surprising to me when my sister said, "Just between you and me, Dad doesn't want Mom's name on it." Which if it was just because I was his daughter, then fine, whatever. But my dad, the forgiving Christian supposedly, was telling my sister it had to do with legal and protective reasons. He wants it to stay within the family, and he didn't want my mom to kick me out if she got dementia for some stupid reason, and generally just comments about her overall personality. Now, I will say my mother hasn't made good choices, and I can understand why my dad doesn't like her, but turning his opinion into suspicion onto my mother was entirely a different matter. My sister and I had an argument twice over it, and when my mother and I decided not to go through with it, because there seems to be more issues than necessary, my sister took it personally and thought it was because I thought that I was better than her, but it wasn't. I just didn't think that this situation was going to be in any way fair to my mom, considering she would have been the one paying for the majority of it if she received her settlement. It also left a bad taste in my mouth because it seemed like my sister was starting to come around to my mother, who was genuinely a better person now, and after this talk, she just went right backwards to where she was. But after dealing with some built-up anger and some irritation I was having with medication issues, it eventually led to its boil. I had it out with my dad. I felt like he caused all the issues, even after my parents have been divorced for like over 10 years now, and I seriously just let everything out. And I will say that truly I was emotionally unregulated at the time, and I do understand why that's hard to deal with. But that, however, wasn't why I was disowned. During the fight, I brought up my dad's pattern of deflecting from responsibility, hiding behind religion, and just hiding things in general. And I used the example of his new wife, saying, okay, well, have you apologized for these certain issues? Because this is how relationships get better. And sure, we all knew that she read messages, but I wasn't thinking of that at the moment, especially since I gave out like specific examples. Well, because of the things I said, a couple minutes later, he said that I was apparently interfering and messing up his marriage, and that he hopes that I'm happy, and tells me that I need to block him. He then tells my sister that I'm getting in the middle of his marriage, and she's acting like I'm messaging her even though I never did. Things escalated eventually to the point where my sister had it out with me more, saying that I became crazy living with my mother, that I'm gonna pass away alone after my mother passes away, while also claiming that whatever happens with dad is my fault, and said that she would call and report government housing on us, even though that wouldn't make any sense because we literally have nothing to hide. So with all that in mind, and especially with all of this happening right before my Christmas, I'm now incredibly stressed out and a little bit heartbroken, because right now I just don't know what to do. Oh man, this is one of those situations where I think some healthy distance would be really good. There's clearly a lot of problems between you and your family, I've got to be honest. Like, there were just more and more details the further you went into explaining all the crap these people have done. From the accusatory statements that just got thrown around left and right, all the way to the divorce and the way it's clearly affected you and your sister. This is truly a mess, and honestly, I just don't think it's healthy for anybody. But if I'm being completely honest, it sounds like your sister and your dad are definitely the ones at fault in this scenario. Because honestly, they sound incredibly toxic here. They're being mean to you, they're saying really nasty things, especially your dad, who's like dragging out this divorce for like, what, 10 years now? Like, dude, let it go. You guys are not together anymore. There's no reason to hold this kind of animosity, especially when it comes to buying a house that, guess what, you've got nothing to do with. So yeah, I'm sorry that they disowned you, but from the sounds of it, these don't sound like good people in my opinion. And I think some time away from them will probably be for the best. My creepy neighbor keeps asking me out to go to the theater with him, and despite the fact that I've said no to him multiple times, this guy literally will not take no for an answer, putting me and my family in the weirdest situation I've ever been in my entire life. Here's what's happening. Around a year ago, my neighbor, who is 59 years old, approached me asking if I'd like to go to the cinema with him. I politely said no, and I thought that was the end of it. But no, I was completely wrong, because the next day he came to the door and asked me again the same thing, to which I said no once again. Then he posted a letter through my letterbox asking me the same question, and I just ignored it. But at this point, he came to the door again to make sure I knew he would pay, and I said no, I'm okay, I don't want to go. Now, by this point, I was freaked out. For some context, I'm 22 years old and I have anxiety, and this neighbor is someone I've known since I was 12 years old, but only in like brief conversations. So I decided to tell my mom. When she found out, she said to me to not answer the door and that she will deal with him herself. He knocked on the door again at 7 o'clock in the morning the next morning, and my mom told him that he was a creep and to back off. Ever since then, he hasn't really spoken to me except for like a wave in passing. Well, that is until yesterday when he approached me asking again. He said he knows my mom thinks he's creepy, but he's just trying to be nice. And I've got to be honest, I was so taken off guard that I just said to him I would let him know. For context, I have seen him this past year, but either he was with his son or I was with my mom. So this is literally my first time ever seeing him on my own. I wanted to make this post because I was helping get shopping out of the car, and all I could hear was banging on his window, and I didn't look up, but when my mom got out of the car, it finally stopped. I feel so anxious all over again, and I don't know what I can say that'll make him stop, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, there are so many red flags in this situation, it's not even funny. Because there is no reason a 59-year-old man should be asking out a 22-year-old woman. Not only that, but this guy is not taking no for an answer. And you should only have to say no once. Like, this is really creepy behavior and completely unacceptable. I know for a fact if I was in your situation though, if this guy really kept trying to come to my house and ask me out to the cinema, I would immediately go to the police with all the information that I could possibly provide, including any camera footage that I guess the original poster said they have around their house, but also that letter he put through your letterbox, which is really just so uncalled for. That's just weird. So yeah, that's what I would do if I was in your situation, because this is out of control and this guy needs to stop. My toxic former landlord kicks me off of her property, all because I refused to pay double the rent in the middle of COVID. So I decided to get some revenge by hiding dead starfish all over her property. Okay, so I had an older landlady who was great for maybe the first year. I rented an ensuite off the main house, which was pretty much a bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom, and all for about $150 a week. This was a fair price as it was pre-COVID and it was pretty small. For reference, this takes place in Australia. She had also built 2 sheds on her suburban property, and these were simple one-room cabins that she also rented out for a ridiculous amount. She called them meditation retreats, and she also had a community book shed at the bottom of her property. She would bring around soup, we would play table tennis in her shed, and I thought we had a great relationship and dare I say friendship. I would take green waste to the tip for her and get her pet food from the pet shop that I worked at. Now, she was a regular herb smoker, if you know what I mean, which I didn't really care about, but sadly it's still illegal in Australia, so it's not really cheap to come by. Towards the end of my second year there, she sat down with me and asked me to pay more rent. Now, I would have been open to that within reason, but she also wanted me to stop claiming government rent assistance so she could have everything in cash and undeclared. That way, she could maximize her pension. I was working a casual job, desperately trying to save for a house, and COVID had just come along and messed everything up. There was no way I could afford to lose what little government assistance I got just so she could buy more of the herb. Now, it wasn't just a small increase either. It was an extra $50 a week. But we had a serious discussion where we compromised on $350 a fortnight, and I emailed her later saying that I understood if she wanted me to move out so that she could get more for the room, but she insisted that she didn't want me to go. But after this, she started putting distance between us. I didn't notice for a while until I saw that she was playing table tennis with some other friends of hers, and she barely spoke to me when I said hello. There hadn't been any soups for a while either. She refused help with green waste or pet food, and I could definitely feel something was off. She soon began to pick issues and started entering my bedsit regularly while I wasn't there, and even took photos of my room and my mess. I'm not gonna lie, I have ADHD and I've got executive dysfunction, along with stress and depression honestly just made it hard for me to be tidy. She claimed that my mess had attracted rats and mice, even though she had chickens that she left food out for and left her back door open for them to waltz in. And here's the thing, my mess wasn't even that bad. There were no signs of mice in there. She claimed her next door neighbors complained about me, but when I spoke to them, they had never said a thing to her and had no problem with me at all. She also complained that I left the lights on for 2 hours when I went out, and that I also left my heater on, and that we had not agreed to 2 heaters in the room. But the thing is, I only had one. The other was an air purifier which was turned off. And it was this level of pettiness that made me incredibly angry. She was borderline harassing me and picking on things she never had an issue with before. And I'm sure it was just to get me out the door so that she could get some other poor sucker who would pay twice as much. With COVID at its peak and rentals in shortage, I dare say she was banking on charging an extra $100 just to support her smoking habit. She finally gave me a month's notice, saying that her sister was coming to stay. I knew it was a load of BS, but at the same time, I was relieved to know where I stood. But honestly, I'm not gonna lie. The next few weeks were stressful like crazy. I had to rehome my birds who lived in a pre-approved aviary outside and had to find somewhere to live in the middle of COVID. I could have fought it, but it just wasn't worth it. I was seriously depressed and not in a good way. Fortunately, I managed to find a place with a couple of friends. They became my rock over the next couple of years, and I was paying cheap rent there, so I was finally able to save for a deposit and bought my first house this time last year. Now, once I settled in the new rental and my mental health recovered, I was finally able to get some revenge on my former landlady. Now, her place was near the beach, and I was a regular swimmer. There were also heaps of invasive sea stars that I pulled out of the water, so I decided to plant several of those sea stars in her community bookshed behind the shelves where she would never be able to reach without pulling everything out, and these things would start to truly stink up the place once they started decomposing. I also rang the tax department and the government pension line, and I straight up reported her for tax evasion and fraud. Then I rang the council and complained about the meditation retreats, as they literally are not council approved. Now, I would like to think that they nabbed her and she got into legal trouble, but realistically, she's probably still living her best life and ripping off somebody else. I later learned that other people had similar issues with her, so I guess one day it might eventually catch up to her. So I think if anything, it might be time to refresh those starfish in her cabinets. Because if anyone deserves this kind of treatment, it's definitely my former landlord. Yeah, I completely understand where the original poster's coming from, because think about it for a second. They're in the middle of COVID and this lady's like, oh, we're gonna double your rent. And sure, it wasn't that much more money. I mean, the original poster had a crazy good deal in my opinion, but with COVID in full force back in the day, that really would be incredibly scary. I know if I was in their shoes, I would be like, wait a second, where on earth am I gonna live? So yeah, with all things considered, it is super petty to put starfish in the cabinet, but seriously, this lady made your life a living nightmare after you told her no. And in my opinion, I think the way you went about doing this is incredibly funny. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that my nephew is not my baby and that I cannot be expected to constantly take care of him since it is literally not my child? Because right now she's not talking to me and I'm honestly not sure if I'm the one at fault here. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister lives at home and she has a 6-month-old baby. She never moved in with her boyfriend because they live far away from each other and neither of them wanted to compromise. Her baby daddy never ever comes around and he's seen their son probably less than 30 days total of his entire life. So because of this, my sister has been treating me and my mom as his other parent. She expects free childcare constantly while she works and gets very upset when I act hesitant about it for whatever reason. And this is all because she doesn't want to send him to daycare, even though she would be eligible for free childcare in our state but simply just doesn't trust it. Now, I love my nephew a lot, but these are my child-free college years. I've been turned into the parent and forced to play mommy for my little siblings for years. And just when they're getting to the age that they don't need me so much, I don't think I should be forced to step up and play mommy to another child who isn't mine, especially when I'm on winter break for the next couple of weeks and I just want to enjoy sleeping in way too late and being lazy before I'm thrown back into college, even though this has been happening for about 4 months. So when she asked if I'd watch him tomorrow, I got a bit of an attitude but ultimately said yes. But to that, she got snappy with me and she was like, why do you always act like you don't want to do it? To which I got upset and responded, well, because he's not my kid and I should not be expected to do this all the time. She then got very angry at me and is now not talking to me at all and is surely going to weaponize my nephew against me in some way. And to an extent, sure, I understand her anger. I know that you should be able to rely on your village and I don't know if I'm in the wrong for not wanting to do this. this, but I'm so tired of taking care of other people's children all the time for free, even if I love the kids with all of my heart. I can't tell if I'm being selfish or not, and it honestly makes me wonder if I'm the jerk here. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think her expectations are way overblown. It is not fair for her to expect you to be basically another parent for her, or to be babysitting all the time. I can understand you helping out every now and then, but it sounds like she wants constant childcare, and that's just not feasible. And even worse, she literally is qualified for free childcare, but she doesn't want it because she doesn't trust it. And it's like, sure, I can understand the apprehension, but like seriously, beggars can't be choosers. If the service is available and for free, why would you not like take advantage of that? So no, you're not the jerk for turning her down, or even expressing any kind of like angst about this situation in general. Because what she's expecting of you, in my opinion, is just a little bit too much. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay for dinner every time my spouse and her family goes out to eat? Because after being expected to cover all 9 people that go to dinner, I'm honestly starting to feel the burden on my wallet, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a spouse I've been with for 3 years who I love very much. Occasionally, we get asked to go out for dinners with her family, including her mother, her brother, her cousin and their 3 kids, and the cousin's mom. Now, whenever we go out, the expectation is that I grab the bill for everybody present. But this feels unreasonable to me to always pick up for 9 people. Her cousin claims to be reasonably successful herself and has a multitude of child support from the 2 fathers of their 3 children. She always says thank you and that she'll get me back next time, but never offers when the time comes around again. Now, my spouse and her family are of Chinese descent, but are longtime residents of the United States with my spouse, with her brother and the 3 youngest all being American-born. Her brother does not work and lives with her mom, while her mom works low-income jobs to support herself and the son. Now, I do pretty well myself, and understand the notion that the man is expected to pay, as this is more prevalent in Chinese culture, but this feels unreasonable to me, as this isn't even demanded by my own parents or siblings, and this is money I could be using for my own dinners or trips with my spouse. For further context, these dinners are frustrating to me, because most of the group just scrolls through on their phones, or the discussion quickly shifts to Chinese between the mom, the aunt, and the cousin. I don't even terribly mind covering her mom and brother, but the extra family of 5 irritates me a bit. Well, my spouse is telling me that I'm being a jerk by complaining about this in advance of upcoming dinner, but I just find this so uncomfortable. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here. I totally get there's some kind of like cultural difference here that maybe I just don't fully understand, but my knee-jerk reaction here is like, okay, wait a second. They're only inviting me because they want me to pay. Like if I was in your shoes, that would be the only thing running through my mind. These people don't actually care that I'm there. They only care about my money and getting me to pay for what they order. And that, in my opinion, is super toxic. I think that is so uncalled for, and that is not okay. And it's even worse by them making empty promises of saying, oh yeah, we'll pay you back next time. Thank you so much for picking up the tab. I really appreciate it. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? That sucks. Thank yous and empty promises are not going to fill up your bank account. And I can only imagine how much that dinner probably costs every single time. Because with 9 people present, like everybody's going to be ordering something that they want, so you could easily be looking at a meal that's over $100, if not more than that. And for you to be expected to pay that every single time, like that is crazy, and honestly, I just would not put up with that. Because in my opinion, if they really did value you as a member of the family, then they would take turns covering the bill. I don't know, maybe there's something I'm missing here, but that seems like the reasonable thing to do. So no, you're not the jerk for being uncomfortable with this and saying that this is a problem. Because in my opinion, it is absolutely unfair the way that you're being treated. My entitled cousins got offended when I told them that they got life handed straight to them, as they literally grew up in privilege that honestly I've never seen my entire life. But once I called them out, they tried to claim that I'm jealous of their smart decision making, and I'm honestly just so exhausted with them, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, my life was hard, and I didn't get any help on the way. As a result, at the age of 35, I'm now doing okay, but I will never own a house or have a family. And with that, this is where my cousins come into the picture. Cousin number 1 lived rent-free in the apartment of his girlfriend since the age of 21, which by the way, she got from her parents. Then they got gifted a property and house by her parents, and it was an old house that they had to repair, but they still saved like $300,000 because they didn't have to buy a property and pay for a new house. In their early 30s, they now have kids, property, and are set for life. Now, cousin number 2 also lived rent-free in the apartment of his girlfriend from the age of 22 and on. They then got gifted a property by her parents, so they had to only finance the house. They're also in their early 30s, and they also have kids, property, and they are set for life. Cousin number 3, with massive financial help from the parents, bought himself an apartment in the early 2000s. He sold the apartment recently for 3 times the price, which financed something like 80% of the property and the house that he bought. Now, all 3 of them think that they are really smart big shots and that they worked hard for their success. But at the recent Christmas family reunion, I couldn't hold my tongue, and I told them that they got life handed to them. If cousin number 1 and 2 hadn't found a girlfriend with wealthy parents that enabled them to move out in their early 20s, live rent-free and save a ton of money, and get gifted them a house and property or even both, then they would probably still live with their parents. They definitely wouldn't own property or have kids, because without the massive financial help that they got, they could not have afforded them. And cousin number 3 got lucky that his parents could finance half of the apartment that he bought. Had he been forced to pay it off by himself, he would not have been able to do so, because just a few years later, by 2008, the value almost doubled. So without financial help from parents, he would not have that apartment, and without the apartment, he wouldn't get that house. Well, they got offended and called me jealous towards their achievements. But maybe I wouldn't be supposedly jealous if you were a little more humble, that you didn't lie that you made it all by yourself, and would not be looking down on people that are at least equally smart and skilled, but just don't receive the extra resources. And with all things considered, I honestly cannot stand their bragging behavior. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. Seriously, these kids had every single privilege in life, and they're trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, we were smart with our money. We are so intelligent, and you're just jealous because of our achievements. And it's like, what are you talking about? Mommy and daddy and or your girlfriend's parents basically funded your entire life. Like, they essentially didn't lift a finger and didn't earn anything that they have. And I think the original poster has it right. If they weren't bragging about something they didn't earn, then I don't think anybody would actually legitimately care about what they do and don't have. It's just the fact that they're upfront and try to claim, oh yeah, we made so many smart decisions. Like, that would make me go crazy because there's nothing successful about them. So good for you for putting them in their place, because that behavior, in my opinion, absolutely deserves to be shut down. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she isn't invited to my wedding after she told me that she would not attend? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I've been feeling pretty down about this lately, so please bear with me. My best friend and I, who we will call Melissa for the sake of this post, have been in each other's lives since infancy. We grew up pretty close and mostly stayed close. There were times in the past where we had drifted, but we always seemed to come back together again eventually. Until recently, I would have described us as being more like sisters than friends at this stage in life. While we have a lot in common, we have a lot of different interests and views, and we don't see eye to eye on everything. However, we've always respected each other and have supported one another through everything. In 2022, I left my now ex-husband, as we had been together for 6 years and married for 2. Melissa was a huge support to me in getting out of a bad situation, and I'm very grateful to her for that. For context, when my ex and I had gotten married, Melissa also supported me as my maid of honor. Now, presently, I've been with my partner for about a year and a half. I realize that this is soon to some, but we have made plans to get married in another year and a half, so technically we are engaged. But when I called Melissa to share the news, she was unhappy. She said it was bad news, and that she couldn't support it, and she wouldn't attend our wedding because, in her opinion, I need to be alone after being divorced. I personally believe that there isn't a specified timeline that a person should have to be on their own after a breakup or a divorce, as long as they're working on themselves and continuing their healing journey. Anyways, Melissa's declaration caught me off guard, and it stung a bit. I told Melissa that it was okay if she didn't want to attend a wedding because we're planning to only have a very small service with only immediate family present. I told Melissa that we may plan something for friends later on, but we don't want to make a big deal out of it. Melissa then sounded hurt. She said to me, "So what? I'm not even family anymore?" But I told her, well, of course she is. But if she didn't want to come anyways, why does it matter if she's invited or not? She's still pretty upset with me that I wasn't planning to invite her, even though she wouldn't attend. I'm feeling sad about the situation, and honestly, if she had wanted to be there, I would have made it work so she could attend. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. Okay, so in my opinion, I do think that you kind of messed up here. Your friend who's known you for a long time is saying, listen, you've got to slow down. You're getting married married too soon, and I think you need to like take a step back and take a breather. And sure, she said, oh, I can't support this and I won't show up. And I think that was like a knee-jerk reaction, but for you to respond by saying, oh, well, you're just not invited anyways, it's immediate family only, like that really would hurt because you already described Melissa as someone you really care about. You've known her since you were kids, right? And you even consider her a sister to some degree. So if that's really the case, then maybe you shouldn't like, I don't know, hold back an invitation to the wedding, all because she said something that you didn't like. So yes, in my opinion, I think you definitely messed up, and I think you're the jerk here, because it really looks like your friend is simply trying to look out for you. Am I the jerk for not letting my brother's girlfriend move into our 2-bedroom apartment, all because she lost her job and she's desperate for a place to live? Because right now, my entire family is pissed off at me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation that I'm in. I'm 30 years old, and I live in a 2-bedroom with my younger brother who's 28 years old. We both share the rent, and we've always gotten along, but we're not super close. We just kind of do our own thing, and it's worked out well so far. My brother is in a committed relationship with his girlfriend, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Rachel. They've been together for almost 2 years, and I haven't been too involved in their relationship, but I've met Rachel a few times, and she has seemed nice. Well, a few weeks ago, Rachel lost her job. It was a tough situation, and I completely understood why she was upset, but things took a turn when my brother brought up that she might need to move in with us temporarily until she finds another job. Now, I didn't think much of it at first. However, when Rachel came over to talk to me about it, she casually mentioned that it could be for up to 6 months since she was having a hard time finding something in her field. Now, I don't want to sound cold, but I immediately felt uncomfortable. I explained that I wasn't comfortable having someone else living here long term. My apartment is kind of small, and my brother and I already have an arrangement that works for the both of us. I also mentioned that having someone else here could impact my space, my privacy, and my routine. Plus, I value the peace and quiet that I have when I come home from work. Now, Rachel seemed upset by this, but I think I was being reasonable. But my brother was not so much happy about my response. He started telling me that I should be more understanding and that Rachel is going through a rough time. He said that I'm being selfish and that I'm making the situation harder for them. I tried to explain that I'm not trying to be heartless, but I just don't feel comfortable with the idea of living with someone I barely know for months on end. It's now causing a bit of a rift between me and my brother, and he keeps texting me that I'm being unsupportive and that I should just let Rachel stay with us. Now, my parents are also on his side, saying that I should help family out in times of need, especially when Rachel and my brother are planning to get married soon. They then say that I should make the sacrifice and let her stay. So seriously, am I the jerk for not letting my brother's girlfriend move in? I don't want to cause any drama, but I also don't want to feel trapped in my own house. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk for a few reasons. First of all, if Rachel doesn't have a job, then how is she going to help pay for rent and the bills? And yes, if she's moving in for 6 months, then she is absolutely going to help pay for stuff. This is not going to be a free ride. Like seriously, that's just not going to happen. But also, the fact that your parents are trying to react in some kind of like guilt-tripping way, like that for me is completely ridiculous and honestly so stupid. I mean, they're trying to act like you need to make some kind of sacrifice for her to stick around. But it's like, okay, if you feel that way, then why don't you do that? Why should you be the one to step up when they could easily step up and be like, okay, live with us? The other option here is that your brother moves out or even you move out, but even then, that just doesn't make any sense. Just because Rachel lost her job doesn't mean that you should uproot your entire life just to accommodate. Does Rachel not have any family or friends or anybody else that could help her out? It's not like you have the extra space. This quite literally would make things super cramped. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all for not wanting her to move in. The fact that anyone's trying to guilt trip you about this, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic because you deserve to live in a space where you actually feel comfortable. And I completely understand why you would not feel comfortable if Rachel decided to stay there. An entitled Disney mom cuts the entire line just so she and her stupid kids can get on the line before everybody else. But after waiting in this line for so long, as well as observing her smug attitude as she walked in front of all of us, I decided that enough was enough, as I went out of my way to make sure this lady not only couldn't get on the ride, but also knew that what she was doing was incredibly wrong. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Today, I visited Disney for the first time since I was 9 years old. It was a super fun day, and while the lines were longer than I remember, maybe I was just excited back in the day. Now, my friend and I discovered the single rider lanes and took advantage of that due to the shorter wait times. And it didn't matter to us to ride separately. As we were waiting in that line, a family of 4, namely a mom, 2 daughters, and a dad, walked through the middle of the line holding hands. Several people are disgruntled and asking what they're doing, but the mom then claims that they forgot forgot something on the ride. They then make it to the part of the ride where single riders, fast pass riders, and the original line are all in a similar area. One of the ladies behind me then screams out, "Well, what did you forget?" And at this point, everyone in the single rider lane is fuming, as we all realize she's just waiting to get on the ride with her kids. They even got shuffled into the pre-ride movie area before my friend and I, and at this point we are shocked that no one brought it to any of the staff's attention. Meanwhile, all the single riders are trauma bonding over this lady's boldness and entitlement. So when my friend and I got shuffled into the pre-ride movie area, I tell one of the staff what the lady and her kids looked like and what she did. He says at this point, since they are already in line to board the car, he literally can't do anything about it. Well, we make it to the boarding line, and lo and behold, there's the lady and her 2 kids. Well, not wanting to let this go, I stop yet another employee, and I explain the situation. Now, she says she will let someone know, but walks in the opposite direction of the rider operators. Then, one of the kids runs up to a man directly behind my friend and I, pulls on his arms and says, "Come on, Dad." We then turn around and Dad is behind us, but he refuses to join his family, probably because he heard everyone in line complaining about what they did. So right then and there, the entire line starts to speak louder. They were saying stuff like, "Well, what a terrible example to set for your children. What makes them feel so entitled? Everyone's waiting the same, some people for hours. Why do they think they're special? Why lie to get what you want?" The whole line at this point is loudly speaking, so these people know exactly what we think of them. The dad continues to hang back and let people get in front of him as he hangs his head in shame and his family inches closer to the front of the line. Now, at this point, I had had enough. I talked to the people in front of me and I asked if I could go let the ride operators know what happened, because I'm not letting this go and I'm not going to let them get on this ride. So I asked the people in front of me to let me warn the ride operators, and they were all happy to step aside. Now, at this point, the entitled mom is blocking the walkway because they are quite literally next to get on the ride. I tap her on her side and I say, "Excuse me," and then I stare her down. She slides over without a word, and I then tell the ride operator, "Look, this lady and her 2 children cut the entire line through the single rider's line, claiming that she forgot something, and you can ask anybody about this in line." This entitled mom then gives me the most evil, disgusted, shocked glare. I walk back to where my friend was, and another woman goes up to the line operator to verify my story. Now, this entitled Disney mom is trying to say both of us are lying, but then everyone in line starts yelling, and they were all telling the exact same story, determined to not let her or her kids on the ride. Well, as a result, they were eventually escorted out the side door, and when that happened, everybody in line started to clap, because this entitled Disney mom absolutely deserved it. Oh my gosh, I love this so much because my god, people at amusement parks, especially at like Disney World or Disneyland or something like that, they are literally the worst people to deal with sometimes. I would say most of the time when you go to those kind of places, it's usually a fine experience and nothing really bad happens. But then you have these Disney adults that take it way too seriously and they think they're entitled to just walk in front of everybody and get exactly what they want. And it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't waiting in line for an hour to go on this 2-minute ride. There's no way in the world you're gonna get in front of me." So good for you for saying something and making sure she got exactly what she deserved, because her attitude as well as her entitlement is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not buying my entitled mother a birthday gift? All because my wife and I just had a baby and money is incredibly tight. Because right now my mom is very upset and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I just had a baby back on December 16th. We are both on parental leave and money is tight. We have bills and we just had Christmas. Not to mention the fact that we have a 3-week-old baby. Now here's where the situation really starts. My mother's birthday is the first week of January and she has asked for a gift. I had politely stated I can't afford to get her a gift this year, and if I do, it will be late. I was respectful in hopes that she would be understanding, but I was completely wrong. Her response was along the lines of, "Oh, I'll just forget about your birthday this year then." Which is like, okay, fine, I don't care about my birthday anyways. But this was the icing on the cake. I told her I couldn't get her a gift and I didn't care if she forgot my birthday. In response to that, my mom started blaming my fiance for me not getting her a gift and calling this whole conversation mistreatment, basically insinuating that we are neglecting her or outcasting her. For more background, ever since my fiance got pregnant in April of 2024, my mom has tried to make the whole experience about her. She got mad when my fiance didn't take her to the appointments with her. She got mad when I found out about the gender with my fiance. She was upset with the last name we gave our son and and made side comments about how my fiance's mom was allowed in the delivery room and not her. Not to mention all the side comments saying my fiance is a jerk or is paranoid. I have defended my fiance through all of it, but it is honestly just getting ridiculous. So am I the jerk at all against my mom? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your mom is being weird and it's honestly not fair. She knows for a fact you guys have no money. You guys are literally 3 weeks into being new parents. The fact that she's being so selfish, in my opinion, is unacceptable. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to get her a gift, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay my father-in-law for home repairs that I never asked him to make? Because right now he's quoting me at nearly $1,000 for work that I could have gotten done for much cheaper. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and recently I went on vacation with my family to our home in North Carolina. And for reference, this is a home that I inherited from my parents. This house is usually rented out as an Airbnb, but due to recent hurricanes, I've been struggling to rent it out and have been doing most of the maintenance myself to save the cost. During our vacation, my father-in-law said he wanted to visit. I reluctantly agreed, and he flew down to North Carolina to stay in one of the spare bedrooms. Since he doesn't have much money, we covered all of his food and restaurant meals during his stay. While we were there, I had a few maintenance items on my list, including repairing running toilets, replacing a sink, and painting the stairs. Now, I had planned to hire a plumber for $350 so that they could fix the toilets, and I would just paint the stairs myself. Well, my father-in-law offered to help, saying that he and my husband could replace the toilets and repaint the stairs. Now, I agreed, thinking it would be fine. However, during the process, my father-in-law cracked the bathtub, which now needs to be repaired, adding it to my cost. Now, this is the part that is truly enraging. At the end of his visit, my father-in-law told me I owed him $850 for the work that he did. And when he said this, I was shocked, because there was no prior discussion about him charging for his help. Considering we provided him with free lodging and meals, and given the bathtub incident, I feel it's unfair to pay him this amount. I haven't responded to him yet, but I don't plan on paying him a single dime. So am I the jerk for not wanting to pay him? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, of course you're not the jerk here. Your father-in-law is out of his mind if he thinks he can get that kind of money out of you. Like, first of all, this would have cost what, $350 to fix? And this guy comes in and says, oh, I'm sorry, it's gonna cost close to $1,000 now because I messed it up. And it's like, dude, I didn't even want you to help out, because at the end of the day, he was the one that offered to help out, not you. And the only reason it's gonna cost you more money is because he damaged your property. Like, this is literally his own fault. So if anything, he should be the one to pay for all the stuff he damaged, and it absolutely should not come out of your back pocket. An entitled teenager makes a scene outside of our hotel room, and despite the fact that we're trying to get up early for a funeral the next day, this idiotic teenager refuses to shut up, forcing us to get the hotel security involved just to get him to quiet down. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in November when we were visiting Texas for my uncle's funeral. It all took place a day before the actual funeral itself, and we were all just tired from driving all around town, getting house supplies and groceries for my now widowed aunt, as well as the viewing of my uncle's body. The funeral was going to be held pretty early in the morning, so we decided to go to sleep early after we had dinner at the Chili's across the parking lot from our hotel. Now, I was sharing a room with my mother and father to save some money, as I'd spent quite a bit in preparation for Christmas, so they were more than happy to let me stay with them during our visit. Well, it was 9 o'clock at night, and we heard shouting coming from outside our room. It sounded pretty nasally and young, so I could only assume it was a teenager talking on the phone or something like that. I look outside the peephole, and I saw a 15 or 16-year-old boy wearing a headset with an Alienware laptop plugged into a charger outlet that he had plugged into the wall. Now, this kept going for 15 straight minutes, so my father decided to ask the boy to please be quiet. My father opens the door and gets the boy's attention before saying, "Hi, so listen, we can actually hear you talking through the walls. You're talking pretty loud, and we actually have a funeral to be at tomorrow. If you could please play in your room or in the hotel lobby, we would really appreciate that." Well, this kid replies by saying, "Well, I'm not talking loud." But my father says, "Well, we can hear you through the walls, so you must not realize you're talking so loudly into your headset." Now, this kid just keeps arguing that he's not talking loudly, but at this point, my father gets a bit more stern. He tells this brat he needs to find somewhere else to play and that we're trying to sleep before shutting the door. 15 more minutes pass and he's still being loud as he talks into his headset playing games. I then told my father to just call the front desk. Maybe they will be able to get him to be quiet. And so he does just that. He gets on the phone and explains everything to the night auditor, and then he hangs up saying, "You'll smell him before you see him," which really made me laugh if I'm being honest. breakfast. He then looked to me and explained how the kid smelled like he hadn't showered in weeks or something like that, because he could smell the most ungodly smell when he was talking to that kid. My mother even said she could smell that exact same odor in the hotel elevator, even though the kid wasn't in the elevator with her during the time. I could even smell it in the hotel stairway after I was coming back from the McDonald's down the street. Hotel security eventually shows up and tells the kid more or less the same thing my father told him, and this time he gets more louder and screams at them, saying that he's not being loud and that everyone's just out to get him. My father and I stood close to the door with our ears pressed against it to try and hear what was going on, and we could hear this kid screaming at the security officers and even his own parents. He just screamed out loud, "And you keep wondering why I keep saying I don't want to be alive." And he basically just kept screaming a bunch of empty threats to them and refused to get up from where he was sitting and allow everyone else to go to sleep. Every 10 to 15 minutes, he would start up again with his parents and more security officers, shouting and screaming the same veiled threats of wanting to do harm to himself, if you know what I mean, while also saying how everyone's just attacking him because he's a teenager and just because he's playing video games. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's why everybody's telling you to be quiet when it's almost 11 at night. Sure, keep telling yourself that. 11:30 comes around and the parents come back one last time to try and get their son to be quiet. I remember the mom saying, "Please, just come back to the room. Everyone else is trying to sleep and you're talking very loudly." She said this really sweet and calmly, by the way, not aggressive or sounding like she was barking an order at him. Well, how does this kid reply? He starts mockingly shouting, "Everyone's just trying to sleep. Everyone's trying to sleep and you're talking loudly, even though I'm not being loud." And the last part of his sentence actually got a giggle out of me when he said, "All everybody knows how to do is act like a bunch of grumpy old men and just leave me alone," referring to my father, by the way, who restrained himself from going outside and shouting and just reading him the riot act like he did back when he was a cop with the perps he arrested. The kid then stomped his foot loudly enough that it sounded like someone popped a balloon and slammed his computer shut so hard that it sounded like he cracked the screen before going inside the room and slammed the door behind him twice as loudly as he shut the laptop. We managed to get sleep around midnight, and it was all we could talk about the next morning during breakfast. My sister and her fiance could hear the shouting as well, but couldn't make out what the kid was trying to say, as their room was at the opposite end of the hallway. My cousin and her boyfriend were in the floor right above us, and they could hear everything, as their room was right on top of where this kid had his multiple tantrums. The incident stayed in my head as I flew back home 2 days after the funeral, and I really feel terrible for those parents for putting up with a kid with such an entitled attitude and the most horrible body odor known to mankind. Wow, I cannot stand people who act like this, who really have no self-awareness of how loud they're actually being. Like seriously, this guy could have gone down to the lobby and played to his heart's content until he turned blue in the face. Like no one's gonna be down there at that hour, and certainly no one's gonna bother him at all. So the fact that he was so adamant about sitting in this hallway and making all this noise, that in my opinion is so unacceptable, and this kid absolutely deserved to get shut down. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not letting my roommate use my emergency savings to cover her rent? Because right now she's calling me selfish, claiming that I'm not a real friend, while also telling my mutual friends that I'm intentionally letting her struggle when I could easily just help her out. But right now I feel incredibly frustrated, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I live with my roommate, who we will call Kara. We've been friends since college, and while living together has been mostly fine, Kara isn't great with money. She often splurges on things like designer clothing, eating out, and spontaneous trips, and I've always kept quiet about it because it's her life. Well, last week, Kara told me that she is short on rent this month, all because of a surprise expense. When I asked her what happened, she admitted that she went on a weekend getaway with friends, thinking that she'd be able to figure it out later. Well, now later is here, and she doesn't have enough money to pay her half of the rent. Kara then asked me if she could borrow money from me, specifically from my emergency savings. But I said no. Those savings are for emergencies, unexpected car repairs, medical bills, or losing my job, meaning that they're not meant for covering her overspending. I told her she should reach out to her family or look into short-term loans. When I said this, she got upset with me and said I was being selfish and not a real friend. She argued that it wouldn't be a big deal for me to lend her the money because I have the savings, and she said she would pay me back soon, even though she couldn't specify when. But I just stood firm. I said to her, I am not your safety net when you decide to blow your budget. Since then, Kara has been cold and distant. She's been telling mutual friends that I'm letting her struggle when I could easily help her out. Some of them think that I should have just lent her the money to avoid the drama, while others agree agree that her poor planning isn't my responsibility. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Her lack of planning is not your emergency, and it certainly is not going to come out of your emergency savings. The fact that she sees you as some kind of like bank account or piggy bank she can pull money from, that in my opinion is the mark of someone who is using you, as well as someone who is absolutely not your real friend. Like seriously, who in their right mind would go for a weekend getaway and then be like, oh, don't worry, I'll figure out rent later. And it's like, wait a second, your way of figuring it out is just getting money from me. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that she would try to guilt trip you into giving her money, in my opinion, says all that you would ever need to know about her. Am I the jerk for leaving my mother's party after she insulted my daughter? Because right now I'm still incredibly mad and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 36-year-old female and I have a stepdaughter who we will call Anna for the sake of the story. Her father and I married when Anna was 2 years old. Now I consider her to be my real daughter in every way that matters, and I love her just as much as my biological children. Most of my family adores Anna as she is very sweet and she's a hard-working girl who does her very best to make them proud. However, my mother appears to not be like this. She's never outright said that she dislikes my daughter or why, but I've always thought it's because Anna wasn't my biological child. I've been teaching Anna how to cook for a few years now, and she asked me last year if she could start bringing her cooking to family gatherings and potlucks, and of course I agreed. Well, when we started doing that, my mother started critiquing Anna's dishes. It began with just suggestions, like she could add different spices or cook an ingredient a little bit longer, but over the past few months, it's been getting worse. And here's the thing, she doesn't criticize any of the dishes from any of the other family members. Well, this Thanksgiving, she told Anna that the casserole she made was disgusting and inedible. When I heard this, I told my mom to stop criticizing Anna and that she was doing her best. But when I told her that, she just brushed me off, which was honestly my final straw. Fast forward, and my family was in town this week so that we could all celebrate my mother's birthday. And since I had everybody there, I decided to try and play a trick on my mother. I had some curry that my mother had made about 6 months ago, and it was given to me to freeze. So I reheated it and I brought it to the party. And I told everyone Anna had worked very hard to make it, just like her grandmother always did. Well, wouldn't you guess it? Immediately, my mother started criticizing the curry, saying how Anna had added too much spice, and she apparently overcooked the chicken. She even went as far as to tell Anna that she should stop bringing food to potlucks altogether. Now, I had not intended to make a big deal out of this, but that comment crossed a line. So it was right then that I decided to reveal my scheme. I informed my mother that it was her own curry that had been reheated, and Anna had not actually cooked any of it. Well, when I said that, she immediately started sputtering and backpedaled, saying she was just trying to give constructive criticism and to try and make Anna a better cook. But I knew that she did not believe it. I asked her why she would treat my own stepdaughter so badly, and she admitted that she didn't see Anna as her real grandchild. And when she said this to me, that honestly was my final straw. I found my husband, I found Anna, and my other children, and I told them that we had to leave, explaining what my mother had said. And we probably won't be attending any family gatherings for the foreseeable future either. Well, my mom has gone full scorched earth on Facebook, and most family members have taken her side. She says that I ruined her party by leaving, and that I destroyed our relationship for someone who isn't even my real child. My husband is on my side, but he thinks that we shouldn't have left the party, since I had already proven my point. So am I the jerk for leaving my mother's party, as well as for calling her out in the way that I did? Because right now, with all things considered, I'm still incredibly pissed off. Oh my god, this is unbelievable. First of all, no, you are definitely not the jerk. If anything, you're a fantastic parent, and you're exactly what your daughter needs. To start things out, your mom is a monster. The fact that she would say, oh, she's not your real child, and I don't consider her a real grandchild either, to me is honestly one of the worst things that she could ever say in this situation. Because seriously, why on earth would you act like that towards somebody else's kid? So I honestly don't blame you for leaving that stupid party. Because seriously, what your mom did was so disgusting. She's been criticizing Anna left and right and treating her like garbage all because she's not a real grandchild. You know, whatever that means. But I just love the fact that you tricked her and caught her right in her words. Because that could have been the best dish of curry you've ever made in your life. And in fact, it was your mom's own recipe. So the fact that she thought it was Anna's was the only reason she was going to criticize it, even though she herself was the one that cooked that dish in the first place. This is all so wild to me, especially the fact that anybody's taking her side. Like seriously, they expect you to stick around and stay at the party? No, that's not gonna happen. If that was my kid, I would absolutely leave. Because if anyone has the right to go scorched earth, it's you, because you caught her exactly where you wanted her. And if the rest of the family wants to be her flying monkeys, then honestly, they can go for it. I would not want anything to do with family members who actually feel that way about my kid. So no, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your mom is a piece of garbage, and so is anybody taking her side, because there is nothing wrong with Anna being your stepdaughter. And if people seriously cannot accept her, then they're the ones with the problem and not you. An entitled Karen rolls up to our food bank, demanding that we give her all of the bacon and steak we can possibly find, as she says she has a barbecue coming up, and she needs the steak and bacon, otherwise her barbecue is gonna be ruined. And I've honestly never met anybody more ingrateful in my life. Here's what happened. During one summer, I decided to volunteer at a food bank that was right down the road from my house. I had expected it to just be canned foods or something similar, but this place was really amazing. They would put together grocery carts of food that were donated from nearby grocery stores. One box of vegetables and fruit, a box of meat and bread and some food, some drinks, some canned foods and desserts. And if you were one of the first 20 people or so, they would give you a full blank cake. Now, I was in charge of the door, which meant taking everyone's tickets for the day and giving them their cart full of food. I had just closed the door to wait for more carts to be finished when I heard someone banging on the door. Now, this wasn't the first time this has happened. Some people think I might have forgotten about them or something like that. So I opened the door and politely said, "Don't worry, there should be another cart ready in a moment." Well, this is when the entitled Karen enters this story. "The last person got their cart right away." I explained that their cart was ready, but that there were no carts ready at this time. Then, miraculously, someone finished their cart, and I was relieved that I wouldn't have to deal with some impatient Karen anymore, but boy was I wrong. Before even looking at the cart, she said to me, "I need bacon and steak in my meat box." But I responded by saying, "Oh, I don't think we have that." But she was definitely not having that, as she shouted at me and said, "Well, just go check then." And she said that as she made a shooing motion with her hands. Well, awkwardly, I closed the door and I went into the kitchen, and I asked if there were any bacon or steak. Now, it wasn't the first time someone had asked for something specific, but bacon and steak was a pretty tall order. The person working on the meat laughed at me and said, "We get donated what people don't want. Tell her that we don't have any." I went back to the door and I apologized, relaying the message that we didn't have any. She let out a loud huff and said, "Then how am I supposed to hold my barbecue?" Now, I didn't want to be judgmental, but I was secretly thinking, wow, you're holding a barbecue with food bank food. Next, she picked up the cake and said, "Now here's something useful. I need you to write happy 4th birthday right on the top of it." But I said to her, "Well, that's donated from a store, so we didn't make it." But again, she was not having it, as she looked at me and said, "And go put words on it right now." I responded by saying, "Well, we don't have frosting and we can't do that. Plus, none of us are trained in writing and frosting as far as I know, so I doubt it would turn out well even if we could." She let out a frustrated huff again and said under her breath, "This place is useless." She then tried to grab the cart and bring it outside, and this is a very common thing for us to happen, but I dug my heels into the floor while explaining that you can't bring the cart outside. She responded by saying, "Then how am I supposed to get the food in my car?" I then pointed to the metal tables and I explained, "You put the boxes on the tables and drive your car up to them." Well, apparently this was the final straw for her, because she started yelling at me in a way that I honestly never expected. "I am never coming back here ever again. You have been nothing but rude to me and have given me barely anything of worth." I don't really remember much else of what she said, because I was near tearful, but it was mainly ranting about how this establishment was useless and she was never going to come back here ever again. And honestly, good riddance. She finally started grabbing the boxes of food and brought them to the metal tables. I was relieved as the last box was taken and quickly closed the door, thinking that was the last I'd ever see of her. But through the door, I could hear her car squealing away and her laying on the horn for some reason. I peeked through the peephole and I watched her honk at a parked car a few times before realizing there was no one in it, and then swerving around it, blowing through the stop sign and squealing away. A minute later, there was a soft knock at the door. I opened it up and I was met with a woman looking nervous. She said to me, "That woman left some boxes behind." And sure enough, on the metal table was all of the fruits and vegetables and the bread and some boxed food. She basically took the meats and desserts and left everything else. So I told the lady that she could have them along with her cart if she wanted them, because we can't bring the food back inside and give it to someone else. Well, when I said that, her eyes filled with tears and she started thanking me profusely. So at least one good thing came out of this entitled Karen's wrath. I ended up telling the other workers and they were shocked. Apparently, they'd never met anyone that was less than grateful about receiving so much food when they're in a tight spot, even though some of them had worked there for several years. Wow, the Karen in this story is so toxic. Imagine being so cheap and so ungrateful that you go to a food bank and start barking demands. Because let's be real for a second, she only showed up so she could get free food for her stupid barbecue. She wasn't there because she needed to be there. She was there because she literally wanted a free handout. Like, I doubt she even needed this food in the first place, especially not out of some actual desperate need for food. Like, this is clearly just someone taking advantage of the system. And that is so weird. Like, that is so toxic. So yeah, that lady was a giant piece of crap, and hopefully she never went back there ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for demanding that my brother replace a product one for one after he kept stealing it all the way to the point of emptying the bottle I bought? Because right now he's trying to buy a cheap knockoff to replace my expensive product, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my twin brother and have for a few years now. Our dynamic is typically fine, but he will take advantage of me at times, like playing my PlayStation when he didn't ask, and taking various things out of my room without asking. Now, I have weather-related allergies and I take a pill as needed. A few months ago, I bought a bottle of 90 of those pills for a total of $36 from a local drugstore. I don't take them every day, and there's 90 in the bottle, so it's hard to keep track of them. A few months ago, though, I did notice that the bottle seems to be getting emptier, despite me not taking a pill every day. I thought that was a little odd, but didn't really think anything of it. But then, just about a month ago, I noticed it significantly more empty than before. So I decided to count them and found there were about 15 pills or so in the bottle. Fast forward to last night and I wanted to take a pill. So I opened the bottle and I noticed there was one pill left. And it was then I immediately suspected my brother of taking them, obviously without asking. So I confronted him about it. He admitted to taking them, but he questioned how many I think that he took. I said I obviously didn't have a clue, but it seems like it's been happening for months. He then got incredibly defensive. He said to me, "Bro, it's just an allergy pill. It's not money. It's not a prescription." But I said that it's the principle. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't steal. I then demanded he replace the product, to go to the pharmacy website and order the exact bottle, because it is a one-for-one compensation, and the price I got is exactly what he will pay for the product. Now, he thought that was ridiculous, but he said he could get a bottle of 300 pills on Amazon for $15 instead of 90 for $36. Now, is it more expensive? Sure, of course it is, but that's the price I paid, despite it being cheaper everywhere else. Well, he wouldn't budge. He said that he's ordering this for me or nothing at all. He then called me a jerk for demanding this, but he doesn't see it the way that I do at all. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this sounds like a premium product. It sounds like you spent more on a product that you know works better than some cheap crap you'll find on Amazon. So to that end, I don't blame you for a second for being not only pissed off, but being like, no, you have to replace this specifically. And you're not looking for some knockoff brand, you're looking for what you got at the pharmacy. And yeah, it's not a prescription, but guess what? It's still yours. And to be completely honest, it sounds like your brother has a habit of just taking your stuff and not asking. And that is not okay in my opinion. Like, that really does suck, and you don't deserve that. So the fact that he's trying to be like, well, I'm not gonna buy this premium product, but I'll get you this cheap knockoff instead. And it's like, no, you can't do that. If you're gonna take my stuff, regardless of what it is, then you've gotta pay the price and pay me back for it. So all that's to say is that no, you're definitely not the jerk, because the way your brother's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly entitled. I found out that my long-term boyfriend originally only approached me because he wanted to get my friend's number, and now I feel completely betrayed, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my boyfriend have been together for 2 years now. We met at a party, and I thought we hit it off instantly, and I was really happy when he asked for my Instagram so we could keep talking. I'm truly and completely in love with him, and we've talked about getting married and everything, and he's been so caring and kind to me all this time. His friends had come over a few days ago to hang out, and since I'm pretty friendly with them, I was there and chatting as well. We were drinking, everyone was pretty tipsy, and someone started teasing him about me and how he's really softened up and settled down. Then one of his friends made a comment about how he probably never expected his future wife to be Rachel's friend. And for context, the woman by the name of Rachel, that's not her real name, is someone I'm friends with, and we attended the party together. And at the time, we were pretty new to the bigger friend group. He just told his friend to shut up and was pretty tense about it the rest of the night. Now, I asked him about it, and he said it was nothing. But once I kept pressing, he eventually confessed that he had seen Rachel around and originally attended the party only to get to know her, which means he probably only approached me in the first place because he knew we were friends. He told me it didn't mean anything, and that any interest he had in Rachel vanished after we started talking, and he asked for my socials later because he could tell we had chemistry. But right now, I'm really heartbroken. I remember thinking he was cute that first night and being so happy that he chose me of all people to talk to. But now, knowing that all of it was only to get Rachel has made me feel absolutely absolutely terrible. Rachel also has had a boyfriend for the past 5 years, so I can't stop thinking about how he probably just cut his losses and decided to go out with me because I was so obviously attracted to him. I'm not bad looking in my opinion. I think I look pretty average, but my friends are way prettier and have always been more popular. And I've always known that people were mostly attracted to me because of my personality and not my looks. But I really thought he was different because he's always complimenting me and telling me how pretty I look, and now it all just feels like a lie. He's been acting really sweet the past few days since it happened, and it's only making me angrier because I know he's trying to walk on eggshells to make me feel better. So seriously, I feel like I'm at such an impasse because right now I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think you are kind of overreacting right now because seriously, it sounds like your boyfriend loves you. Sure, he was interested in your friend at first, but then he got to know you and he's like, wait, I like you way more. And honestly, that's not totally out of the ordinary. That really does sound like an ordinary situation and it's totally fine. So sure, I think it's okay to feel a little bit bad about this, but I would not allow this to get in the way of what you have currently with your boyfriend. He clearly loves you, otherwise he wouldn't have stuck with you for 2 years. And I think just because he liked Rachel first doesn't mean that he doesn't love you right now. So if I was in your shoes, I would not be overthinking this, because in my opinion, this definitely is not a deal breaker. An entitled Karen demands that I fix my yard, as she claims that the flowers I'm planting in my yard are not compliant with the homeowners association. So I decide to maliciously comply and get some revenge by planting some of the most obnoxious looking plants you've ever seen in your life. And I honestly have never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so let me tell you about my dear neighbor Karen. And yes, that Karen. And I'm sure you know the type of person I'm talking about. They have a clipboard, their self-righteous attitude, they're always sniffing out problems that don't exist. She's not even on the homeowners association board, but she acts like she's the president of the universe. The issue started when I decided to brighten up my yard with colorful flowers. Nothing crazy, just some tulips, some daisies, and a little garden patch. And sure, you might be thinking this is harmless, right? Well, not according to the Karen. One afternoon, she stomps over waving her little handbook like it's the Bible, and she's Moses coming down from the mountain. She starts screeching at me, "Those flowers aren't in compliance. You're violating section 12.4. Only native plants are allowed." Now, I try to reason with her by saying, "Karen, the neighborhood guidelines just say that the yard has to be well maintained. These flowers are fine." But no, this entitled Karen wasn't having it. She just said she was going to report me to the HOA because according to her, the rules are the rules. So I think to myself, okay, fine. If you want me to follow the rules, then that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And it's right about now that my malicious compliance comes into play. So I did some research and I found every obnoxious native plant I could get my hands on. We're talking stuff like thorny bushes, spiky grasses, a massive yucca plant that looks like it's about to eat a small animal. I mean, you name it, and I planted it front and center. By the time I was done, my yard looked like a post-apocalyptic jungle, but every single plant was 100% native to the area. And let me tell you, I double-checked the guidelines to make sure I was bulletproof. Well, this entitled Karen comes stomping back a week later. She's furious with me, screaming, "This is unacceptable. Your yard looks terrible." And she's literally screaming this at me while also flailing her clipboard around. I say to her, "Oh, Karen," in the sweetest smile I could muster, "you were so right. My flowers weren't compliant, but these are all native plants, just like the rules you pointed out. Isn't it great?" Well, when I said that, she sputtered like a broken engine and then ran off to the HOA. They reviewed my yard and guess what? I was completely in compliance. And as a result, the Karen ended up getting a warning from the board for harassing neighbors. So now I sit on my porch sipping coffee surrounded by my chaotic jungle of compliance, while this entitled Karen avoids making eye contact every time she walks by. And honestly, this little victory feels absolutely amazing. Okay, I can kind of see why HOAs would be important, but the fact that this lady's like, "Oh, these flowers don't fit the guidelines," and was just acting super obnoxious about all of this, like that is so crazy to me, it's not even funny. Like seriously, you're not hurting anybody. You're literally just trying to plant flowers in your yard, you know, to try and make the area look good. And this lady's really going over every single flower and being like, that's not allowed. It's like, my God, get a life. What is wrong with you? So good for you for getting some really nice petty revenge, because this Karen absolutely had it coming. Today, my thieving roommate, who's currently being evicted, tried to watch my movie while I was sitting in my living room. So I decided to get petty and pause my movie until they left, making it quite clear that they are definitely not welcome in my home. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female with roommates, and one of them is a thief. And at the moment, they are being kicked out, but that takes some time. But in the meantime, I'm still living in my home as I should. So just now, I was sitting on the couch watching a Netflix movie when the thief went to the kitchen to cook. It's especially tense since I caught them stealing again yesterday, and that's when I gave them notice that they need to move out. As I'm sitting here watching this movie, I noticed that they had stopped what they were doing for an extended period of time. And that's when I realized that this idiot was standing there watching the movie I had on as if this was some kind of hangout time. Like, please get done what you need to and go back to your own space. Your thieving presence is clearly not welcome anymore, and this was never meant to be a shared hangout area in the first place. So I paused the movie and they suddenly went back to cooking. I mean, they could not have been more obvious. So after that, I had it paused until they went back to their part of the house, and my petty self sat here in silence for 15 minutes until they left. Now, as a bonus, yesterday I told them that they have until tomorrow at a certain time to get their food out of my pantry, because after that, I'm installing a coded gate lock onto it. I also made a point of aiming a security camera explicitly at the pantry. They knew they were being recorded before, which makes them stealing even more wild. But I want them to really feel it now, because if you're going to act like a criminal and steal from me, then I'm gonna treat you like one in return. Oh man, this is such an awful one. Seriously, you've got a known sketchy roommate and you're trying to get them out, and here they are trying to like watch your Netflix movie with you. And it's like, seriously, read the room, buddy. What are we doing right now? It's crazy to me that they not only steal while there's cameras around, but also have the audacity to even show their face in the first place. So honestly, I think it's good that you're getting rid of them, because that's not someone I would ever want to live with. Am I the jerk for trying to get my neighbors to not block my front door after they've repeatedly blocked it with a very large stroller that would prevent me from even getting out in the case of a fire? Because right now they are super pissed at me after I complained, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in New York City, and I recently moved into a small building that has 3 stories and 6 apartments in total. My apartment is a ground floor unit, and from move-in, my neighbors have been storing their large stroller in front of my front door, which poses problems every time I have to come and go from my apartment. It is also against fire code and explicitly forbidden in the building's leases. The stroller is there every day unless their kid decides he doesn't want to walk. One day when I heard them leaving it there, I introduced myself and politely told them that leaving their stroller there was causing me issues, and it is against the city's fire code. I then asked them to no longer keep their stroller in front of my front door. Well, the female neighbor gave me excuses that they live on the 3rd floor, but the husband literally straight up raised his voice at me. And this is all while I was holding my infant daughter. The woman said that as a compromise, she would fold the stroller when leaving it at my front door. Now, as time went on, the stroller has never been folded up and continued to block my door. Well, as it is against the fire code and explicitly forbidden in the lease, I decided to reach out to the property manager to help resolve this issue. I just want to be able to safely come and go from my apartment. Well, fast forward, and the day the property management enforced this on these neighbors, the female neighbor rang my doorbell and proceeded to refuse to speak to me and just called her mother instead. And at this point, her mother then berated me on speakerphone and said I should have spoken to them first, ignoring me when I said I did. She then kind of threatened me by saying that I complained about the wrong people. Now at this point, I was stunned and I couldn't believe this was happening. All I could muster was insisting that it is against the fire code and no one gets to break the fire code no matter who they are. I am truly baffled by this behavior. I found it to be a very bizarre confrontation, and I didn't know adults could act this way. I mean, I've never had issues with neighbors before. I have a child younger than theirs, and I empathize with their situation, but their kid is massive and completely able to walk, because at the end of the day, I just wanted access to my front door. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that have gone down? Because right now, I'm still incredibly annoyed. Wow, I can't believe that they not only complained about you complaining about them, but this lady literally couldn't address you herself. She had to go through her mother. And for reference, in case anyone's wondering, this lady is 40 years old, and she's calling up her mom to handle her problems. Like seriously, what is going on right now? And the fact that these people would be like, oh yeah, you definitely should let us block your doorway so we can do whatever we want. It's like, lady, what if there's a fire? How am I supposed to get out of my apartment? Like, the fact that they're upset about this is insane. They do know they live in New York City, right? This place is packed full of people and there's no room for anything. So maybe get a smaller stroller if you really need one, and don't block someone else's doorway and be like, oh, this is your fault. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because these people, in my opinion, are completely crazy. I'm worried that my job might be exploiting me, as I feel like my job responsibilities are way outside what I was expected to do, because at this point, I seriously am considering switching jobs. Here's what happened. So to start things off, I'm a student and I work as a hostess. Since I'm an immigrant, this job is helping me at the moment, or at least I thought so until I realized how tired I get when I come home after my shift, even though it's not every day. And as a result, I've started rethinking this job. First, I began to notice how much extra work I'm doing beyond seating people, taking notes, and arranging tables for larger groups. I also have to separate tables after the groups leave, bus all the tables, and organize dirty dishes in the kitchen, since since if I don't, there's no space for my own. On top of that, I refill drinks on the freezer when they run out, restock paper plates, handle takeout orders, clean the doors if they're too dirty, take tips from the tables to the front desk, restock the menus, the crayons, and the silverware, and at the end of the day, I clean the mirrors, the sinks, I refill the toilet, and I take out the trash in both the women's and the men's bathrooms. I've started wondering if it's really worth continuing and if I'm working more than I should, since I thought that my job was just to be greeting and seating people. I earned $16 an hour and I got some tips at the end of the shift, but not consistently. Each waitress gives me her personal share of tips, but some of them don't because I just don't think they want to. On the other hand, the job is extremely flexible, and I can order and take home anything I want from the menu. Even so, I'm not sure if I'm wrong to feel like I do more than I should, especially on nights where it's incredibly busy with 3 or 4 servers and only me as the hostess. And when I do have another hostess during my shift, even though they're supposed to help me out, they usually do the bare minimum, like just taking orders and chatting with customers and managers about life, while I'm left doing literally everything else. Also, the waitresses rarely help clean up. They might do a little, but often they leave me to handle more than 10 tables while they eat or do lighter tasks like preparing cutlery, and this is all when there's no customers. Plus, it doesn't make sense to have all the waitresses sitting and preparing cutlery when 30 sets aren't even needed at the moment. Now, another detail that's important to note is that often they don't specify when my shift ends. They'll say something like closing or when it's slow, but even when it's slow and I'm ready to leave, they'll ask me to stay longer until a time they decide. So seriously, what do you think? Am I wrong to feel like I'm doing way more than I should as a hostess? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're getting taken advantage of here. It may seem like you're doing a lot of things that are outside of your job, but from my own experience, this isn't completely out of the ordinary. So no, I think what you're doing is completely normal for your job, and if I was in your shoes, I would stick it out, as clearly it sounds like this job is a good fit for you. My toxic uncle lies to me by saying he's in a tough financial situation, as he practically begged me for $700 so that he could meet his financial needs. But after not paying me for months, my uncle comes around to our Christmas family dinner, announcing that he's going to be taking his daughter on an extravagant vacation. But at this moment, I snapped, as I exposed him for the liar that he is, as he has yet to pay me back the $700 that he owes me. And now my entire family is turned against me, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Last September, my uncle, who we will call Daniel, came up to me looking all stressed out and asked if I could have a sit down with him as he needs a favor. He began to speak on how he was really in a rough financial spot and he really had nowhere else to turn to, as he didn't have anyone to ask a loan from, and I was the only one left available. Mind you, I'm not rich or anything of the sort. I just happen to have the amount that he needed at the time. According to him, it was a serious situation that he couldn't approach or tell other guys in the family, and the issue needed to be addressed soon. So without better judgment, I lent him the cash after much insisting from him. We agreed on payment before December, and I didn't even ask for any interest on it. With lots of hugs and words, he took it and gave me his word he would pay it back. Fast forward, and we are now at Christmas dinner at my grandma's house. And all that time, I didn't give him any reminders or a checkup. I assumed that he was late or something like that, and he would let me know why at Christmas dinner, because the larger family meets every year for that. He also didn't call or say anything to update his situation, and I just had to trust that all was well. Now, on a related side note for later, my cousin, who we will call Anna, who is Daniel's daughter, recently underwent surgery a while back, as she really had it rough for the whole of last year while she recovered from a traumatic back injury from an accident. Well, everybody was enjoying their meal, and suddenly my uncle stood up at the dinner table and called for attention for a speech. He began to speak on how his business took a really huge boost, and long story short, he apparently has just cashed in on a very large profit from some deals. He then looked at Anna across the table and took out some brochure with some resort-looking location and said it was a gift to her for her tough recovery from the incident. Now, all I could see was Anna visibly crazy excited. Someone asked what it was exactly, and Daniel said he was planning on taking Anna and the rest of his family to the Maldives as a celebration on Anna's accident recovery. Everyone was now happily cheering Anna on, as her gift seemed like it was something she always wanted to experience. Well, at this point, I couldn't hold it in, as the words just slipped out of my subconscious mind as I looked him straight in the eye and I said the following: "Okay, so you can afford all that but not repay my debt, which you haven't even said anything on?" He responded by saying, "Why are you talking about that now of all places?" Now at this point, I was pissed off. I reminded him in front of everyone on the exact amount, and I told him the fact on how he wasn't even communicating on repaying it. Well, the entire family was in shock with dead silence, as my mom quickly tried to change the subject to avoid an escalation of the situation. Fast forward, and later on in the evening, my aunt, my grandma, and some of my cousins literally began lecturing me on how I ruined Anna's moment after she had this massive struggle, and apparently I embarrassed my uncle in the process. Well, they leave in a week and he still hasn't paid or mentioned anything on the debt. So truly, am I the jerk for ruining the moment and asking for repayment? Because right now I'm still pissed off and I don't know what to do. Oh my god, this is so frustrating, it is not even funny. Here you have a family member who's like, oh, you've got to help me out. I'm on such dire straits. My finances are in ruins. I don't know what to do. Please give me money. It's the only way I can make this happen. And I think any reasonable person would be like, sure, I'll help you out. I'll give you some money, whatever. It's only $700 apparently, according to the original poster. So it's not that big of a deal. And if I have it, I'll give it to you, especially if you're in like a rough financial spot. Like, I get it. I think anybody would get it. But fast forward to now and we're sitting at this Christmas dinner and it's like, oh, so that was a straight up lie. You were just lying the entire time. Because now they're going to the Maldives. Like, I don't even know where that is, but it sounds expensive. It sounds like this is probably not something that's like easy to go to. So it makes you wonder if he even had any kind of like financial problems, or was he legitimately going from family member to family member and just getting money out of them? So in my opinion, if someone pulled this kind of garbage on me, I absolutely would call them out as well. Like, you are definitely not the jerk. This is such crappy behavior for so many reasons. And the fact that he tried to guilt trip you and be like, wow, you're ruining Anna's big moment. And it's like, wait a second, what about my big moment in my bank account? There's literally a dent that you said you would pay back. Like, what is going on right now? How am I the bad guy? So no, you're definitely not the jerk. This is an insane situation. And the fact that your uncle is trying to spin this against you, as well as your extended family trying to be like, wow, you shouldn't have done that. Like, that is insane. And all of them, in my opinion, are completely in the wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled neighbors did me and my family dirty, as they basically tricked us into watching their dog for free. Because right now, I'm considering going to small claims court, and I seriously now am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to give some context to the drama I've had with one of my neighbors, I have two small children who met some other kids their age at our local park. I made friends with their grandparents, who were with them at the time, and everything seemed fine. Over time, I got to know the kids' parents, exchanged numbers, and set up play dates. At first, they seemed nice, but then I started noticing some red flags. The mom doesn't hold her daughter accountable for her mischief and always lumps my daughter in, even though my daughter is very well behaved and very sweet. If her daughter does something wrong, my daughter gets questioned as well, which really seems unfair. There's also been some tension between this mom and my husband. The mom, who is a doctor, is very blunt, so much so that it comes across as rude. She's made little jabs about my husband behind his back, which I find inappropriate, especially since he's also a blunt type A personality like her. One particular awkward moment happened at our 4th of July party. This neighbor mom interrupted my dad mid-story, telling him to be quiet and wait his turn to speak. My dad has a habit of talking over people, but for her to speak to him that way, especially when she barely knows him, was just completely out of line. And at this point, I've decided to keep this family at arm's length. They are problematic and very ungrateful. But with all that being said, this is where the drama really starts. While the mom's family was on vacation, my sister watched their dog for 2 weeks. I helped her out by cleaning their house a bit, even though it wasn't necessary. The dog has bladder issues and pees a lot, so my sister cleaned up frequently. Initially, the mom wanted my sister to stay overnight because the dog needs to go out at night. However, when we met at her house before she left, she said to us, "Here's the guest bedroom if you're comfortable sleeping here if you want." The mixed messaging was honestly so confusing. My sister decided to stay overnight, but made sure to consistently check on the dog, clean up after him, and even took him on walks. Now, I thought everything was fine, and we left the house looking really clean. But when I went to talk to the mom today, her husband angrily brought up a pee stain that supposedly caused water damage to the floor. He then directed his anger towards me, and while I was tempted to snap back, I held my temper. The mom was also critical, acting as though the house was destroyed. She even criticized my sister for overwatering one of her plants. And it's like, seriously, are you kidding me right now? I had even gotten her an extra houseplant as a thoughtful gesture. At this point, I'm completely done with this family. They are unreasonable and just so awful to deal with. But I feel like they owe us money for the work my sister did. I feel like they just wanted free pet sitting and made up whatever they could to try and not pay. I really want to take her to small claims court, but I just don't have the energy to entertain this thought, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I can't believe you're even wasting your time with these people. Seriously, cut them loose and don't even look back. Don't help them out with anything, just be cordial and silent and stay your distance. Because based on what you described, these people people sound super toxic. It seems like no matter what you do for them, they will always find some way to complain. And that sounds super obnoxious. Like, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. So sure, they didn't pay you guys for like the time you spent cleaning their house and watching the dog, but in my opinion, just take that as a lesson learned and then move on with your life, because these people do not sound like good neighbors. And if I was in your shoes, I would just move on and not look back. Am I the jerk for not cleaning my sister-in-law after she passed out drunk and vomited all over herself? Because right now she's saying that I should have done better at cleaning her, and in fact, according to her, I should have given her a bath while she was passed out, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So between Christmas and New Year's, me and my wife went to hang out and drink at my sister-in-law's house while her husband and son went away for a few nights. Basically just a normal night. My wife and I went over to keep my sister-in-law company. We played board games and drank and all this other stuff. Now my sister-in-law is very proper, very fashionable, and basically just a basic white girl. She's probably about 5'2" tall and about 100 pounds. Anyways, we're in the living room and my wife passes out on the couch. So we decided to call it a night sleeping on the couch. My sister-in-law then gets up to go to bed. She is a little wobbly, but she goes into the bathroom and shuts the door. Now I play on my phone for about 45 minutes and then I notice that she's still in the bathroom. So I knock on the door, but I get no response. I then play on my phone for about 45 minutes and I notice that she is still in the bathroom. So I knock on the door again, but I still get nothing. I knock a few more times, but then I open the door and I look in. Well, it turns out that my sister-in-law goes to the bathroom naked, especially number 2, if you know what I mean. Apparently she passed out while going to the bathroom and fell off the toilet onto the floor. Somewhere in all of that, she also puked all over herself. So I'm left with a completely naked woman covered in number 1, number 2, and some vomit. Now I try to wake my wife up, but she is completely out cold. I also try to wake up my sister-in-law, but she's out cold as well. So I just grab a bunch of towels and I do a quick cleanup. I get the heavy stuff off of her, I clean up the floor, and I made her a bed of towels so she didn't have to sleep on the cold tile. I propped her head up on a folded towel as a pillow, and I used a giant fluffy towel as a blanket. Now here's where I might be the jerk in this situation. My sister-in-law is mad at me that I let her lay in her own puke and poop all night. She said that I should have picked her up and put her in the bathtub and bathed her, but she was passed out drunk, and I didn't think she wanted me touching her in that state. She then replied that I have a wife and a daughter, so apparently I should have been fine to take care of her. She then said she's only 100 pounds, so it would have been easy for me to do. Now my wife sides with me, but other women say that I should have cleaned her better. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Would you want someone touching you while you're passed out? Because honestly, right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, what is going on right now? This is crazy. Are you kidding me right now? Like seriously, this lady thinks she's in some kind of like romance novel. And she's like, why didn't you bathe me while I was naked and completely passed out? It's like, yeah, because you were passed out naked, lady. I'm not gonna touch you. The last thing on my mind when I see someone laying in their own feces and urine and vomit is for me to start up the bathtub and be like, okay, let's get you cleaned up and bathe you. No, I'm gonna do what the original poster did. Maybe throw a few towels down and be like, okay, see you in the morning. Like there is no way I'm touching that lady. That is crazy. Because how on earth are you supposed to know that she's gonna be okay with that? Let's say you did go ahead and bathe her for some weird reason. She could then turn around and be like, wow, he did crazy stuff to me while I was completely drunk. It's like, you don't know that she wants that. Like what in the world is going on? Also, it's really important to note that this is a sister-in-law. This is not someone that the original poster is even related to, not by blood or anything. It's literally just by marriage. So for her to be like, wow, I can't believe you didn't bathe me. It's like, yeah, you're welcome I didn't. That's a crazy thing to get offended over. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think your sister-in-law and anybody who agrees with her is a complete idiot, because what she was asking of you is unbelievably inappropriate and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate to stop cooking all the time, as she is literally constantly hogging the kitchen all the time? Because right now she is pissed off that I'm not supporting her passions. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live with my roommate, who we will call Katie for the sake of the story, and we've been roommates for like a year. Things were fine at first, but now I'm losing my mind because she is obsessed with cooking. Now at first it was kind of cool because she would make these fancy meals and sometimes even offer me some, but now she likes doing it all the time and it's driving me nuts. She cooks literally every single day, sometimes even twice a day, and it's never simple stuff. It's always these big fancy recipes that use like every pot and pan we own. The kitchen is always a disaster, and she doesn't even clean up after herself right away. Like sometimes I'll go to bed and then the next morning there is still dirty dishes and random food everywhere. Also, she has started making weird stuff like fish stock and some kind of like fermented stuff, and it makes the entire entire apartment smells so bad. The fridge is also a huge issue. She's completely taken over all the space with her leftovers and jars of sauces and random ingredients, and it's like I can now barely fit my milk and eggs in there. Last week I came home starving after work, and she was making this huge meal, and she told me I had to wait like 2 hours to use the stove because she needed it for her process or whatever. So I just ended up eating cereal because it's like I'm not waiting that long. So I told her that she needs to chill out and stop hogging the kitchen all the time and at least clean up after herself. When I said this, she then got super mad and said to me that I'm unsupportive of her passions and that I'm being selfish. She was like, "I don't complain when you watch TV all the time, so why are you complaining about this?" Which makes no sense because her cooking affects me directly. Now at this point, she's being all passive aggressive, saying things like, "Oh, I'll just eat some frozen meals from now on since I'm such a problem." And it's like, I don't really know what to say, and now I kind of feel bad about it. But also, I pay rent as well, and I should be able to use my own kitchen. So seriously, am I the jerk for saying anything about this? Or should I have just let her do her own thing because this is her hobby? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. No, this is crazy. Katie is being so weird in this story. She literally hogs the entire kitchen, leaves a mess everywhere, and then tries to act like this is your problem for saying anything about it. Like, come on, if you're gonna do some kind of hobby like that, you need to clean up after yourself, especially if you have roommates or if you're living with someone. Like, that really is not fair in the slightest. So no, you're not the jerk for saying anything. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, because the way Katie's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly obnoxious. My coworker smells like absolute putrid garbage, and even though we've gone to management about this and asked them to do something to take care of this guy's refused to listen to their warnings, leaving the rest of the staff having to deal with his awful smell on a daily basis. And I now honestly dread going to work because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been working at this restaurant for almost 2 years now. I could be promoted to night manager soon, and my fingers are crossed for that, but right now I'm the head server at the moment. I have a passion for this job. I even had to comment on health code violations to other servers that they were doing and the things that they are still doing. And this one health code violation is an actual walking health hazard. We have a dishwasher that works on Friday and Saturday nights, and I believe he's in his late 50s. He is a very sweet guy. He makes good conversation, has funny moments, and is fast at clearing the pit. But the problem is that he smells horrible. He smells so bad that it literally makes me nauseous and want to throw up. His smell gives us all headaches and nausea, and you can smell him 10 feet away. So as a result, the whole dish and prep area smells horrible when he's back there. I actually had to tell my manager that either I go home or he does. But I'm the closer, so she needs me. His smell giving me a headache and making me feel sick affects my ability to do my job. I can't do my job if every time I'm dropping off a dish, I'm also running to the bathroom needing to throw up. I can't function right having a pounding headache. 6 months ago, he was talked about, and he said it was a medical condition. And he was told to get a doctor's note to confirm it, but he never got one. Well, about 6 weeks ago, he was pulled aside again, and he said he had a change of clothes in his car and was told to go change. He then mumbled his way back to the dish section, claiming discrimination against him. Well, a couple of weeks ago, he's been drowning himself in cologne to try and cover the smell, but it only made it worse. You could smell him around the corner. I mean, the smell punches you right in the face. But not only that, his pants sag so badly, his back pockets are down to the back of his knees. His crack is always out, even though he wears a belt. A server even saw him dig into his butt and go touch dishes right out of the washer. A separate time, I saw him lick his fingers to separate small soup cups as a way of putting them all away. But thankfully, I sat those aside and put them in the wash again. He's now starting to come in and eat on his days off, and we have to sit him on the other side of the closed section so that his smell won't affect our guests. And we even have to bleach bath where he sits twice just to get the smell out. But here's the major problem. The owner is starting to secret shop at the restaurant. If the owner comes in and smells him, I honestly don't know what would happen. The managers have told him to fix the smell multiple times with written reports. But honestly, this is a major hygiene issue. And with multiple verbal warnings and documentation of it, and nothing being done about it, I'm afraid that we will get a big backlash from the owner. I keep telling my manager that he needs to be let go, but she just can't let him go because she doesn't have that power. None of us who work with him can stand this anymore, and I'm honestly now dreading working the night shift because I can no longer stand the smell any longer. Okay, this is crazy because this guy absolutely needs to either clean up or get out. Like, there's gotta be some kind of employee handbook that addresses this, right? I'm pretty sure most places that you work at, you have to have some semblance of like cleanliness in order to work there, especially a freaking restaurant, man. I don't want someone digging at their butt and and then washing the dishes, or even catching a whiff of some guy that smells like putrid vomit. Like seriously, how is this not already taken care of? Because this guy can either clean up his act or he can be fired, and I absolutely think he should be fired. This is not some kind of discrimination case. He's just being disgusting and not properly bathing himself, or like, I don't know, wearing different clothing. So no, you're not the jerk here. This guy's completely gross and out of line. And the fact that the managers haven't addressed this with the owner or somebody above them, in my opinion, is completely insane. My sister-in-law dropped her dogs off at our house without asking us first, demanding that we watch her dogs for a week while she goes on vacation. And even though we told her we're not going to do that literally for weeks prior, she still happily ignored us, deciding instead to go off and do her own thing. But now, after we put those dogs in a shelter, my sister-in-law has gone ballistic, saying that she's going to sue us as a result. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I know the title sounds bad, but please let me explain. To give some context, my wife works all day and we have 2 kids. I'm in college online, but I'm also starting my work hours. And on top of that, we have 2 rescue dogs and 2 rescue cats. And this will be very important later on. We have London, who is a blue-nosed female pitty, and Raven, who is a female husky. Raven came from a very bad household situation when we rescued her, and she is a dog who is aggressive to dogs that she doesn't know. We do have Raven in training, and she is getting better, but she's terrified of dogs bigger than her. My sister-in-law has 2 dogs, a little Chihuahua and a Great Dane. She ended up booking a trip months ago and recently found out that she can't bring her dogs with her. And so she asked my wife, her sister, if we can watch them. My wife told her sister to talk to me, and I told her, no, I'm sorry, we can't. Raven is terrified of big dogs, and your Great Dane is bigger than her. I don't want her to relapse in any kind of way. Well, my sister-in-law, who we will call Amy, then goes on this massive long tangent about how dogs can't relapse, and that apparently Raven will be fine, and that it's not an issue. But I put my foot down, and I told her that we are not watching them. Well, my wife was at work, and I had picked up my kids from my sister's, and when we come home, we find my sister-in-law's dogs in the front yard. I called my sister-in-law and I asked her what she thought she was doing, and she then proceeded to tell me, oh, it's not a big deal, I'll be back in a week. My wife then told Amy that if she doesn't get back from her trip, she won't have her dogs anymore because they won't be here. Now, she thought that we were joking, but when she came back from her trip, she found out that my wife took them to the shelter, and at this point, my sister-in-law went ballistic, screaming and yelling that her babies were gone, and that we should not have done that. But my wife then told her that she had been warned to come and get the dogs, otherwise they wouldn't be here. And now Amy is trying to sue us for giving up her dogs. Now, when I say sue us, I don't honestly mean it, because this isn't the first time Amy has threatened to sue my wife and I. However, Amy has now been going around and spinning this story by saying that I'm the only one who did it and that it's my fault her dogs are gone. Because of this, we now have family members who are split down the middle. So it makes me wonder if we're the jerks for doing what we did with her dogs, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I want to point out first off that Amy is a massive hypocrite. She's trying to be like, oh my god, my babies are gone, what have you done? But it's like, wait a second, didn't you leave your dogs at their house unattended and run off on vacation for a week? Even though these people said, hey, if you don't get your dogs, we're taking them to a shelter. Like, if you really cared about your babies, you would be like, oh, let me find other accommodations. Sorry about that. Like, this lady is completely unreasonable and out of her mind. She wants to play both the victim and the assailant at the same time. So no, you're not the jerk for putting those dogs in the shelter. She clearly doesn't care about them, and she just wanted to get her way so she can go on vacation. Because in my opinion, she sounds like a very neglectful dog owner, and she should not have dogs at all if this is the way she's gonna act. My entitled parents absolutely hate my fiance, despite the fact that he is quite literally a perfect future husband, as they have gone as far as to say that he is absolutely the worst thing to ever happen to me, and that I'm going to regret marrying him for the rest of my life. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out point blank, my parents don't like my fiance. They have made it obvious throughout our whole relationship that they are not big fans of him. We have had this conversation multiple times, but today I have had it. We have been together for 3.5 years, and we got engaged this November. In some ways, my parents are traditional. When my boyfriend and I first started dating, I tried to look for someone I really thought that they would like, because that really mattered to me. They wanted me to be with someone who was educated, had a good job, from a nice family, and shared the same religion and culture. I really valued that because I also wanted the same for most of those. He checked all my boxes and then some. I admire how strong of a work ethic he has, and how when he has goals for himself, he works towards them 100% to make it happen. But on the other hand, he is so gentle with me and loving. He supports my dreams. He makes sure that he does whatever it takes so that I am happy. We work so well together. We have the same sense of humor, and in general, we are truly best friends. I thought my parents would love him because of all of this too, but but I was completely wrong. They quickly found things they disliked about him. We live an hour away from each other, and he lives in the city, so we hang out there often because there is more to do. And they just hated that I drove to his house. They thought it was very disrespectful to me that he would want me to drive there, and instead he should pick me up and drive me back to his house, and then bring me back home that same night because we don't do sleepovers. I told them that was unrealistic as we would lose time on driving. If we lived closer together, he would pick me up, but he works until 6 o'clock p.m. most days, so I come to his place right around then so we can then have more time to hang out. If he had to pick me up, we wouldn't get to his place until about 8 or 9 o'clock p.m., but they didn't care about the logistics, only that he's not a gentleman. He takes us on date nights with dinner and an activity weekly and buys me flowers multiple times a month. He opens the car door for me always. He cooks for us. He is kind with his words when I'm feeling down. So to me, he is a gentleman. He has a 9-to-5 job that is well paid. He is also a landlord and likes to flip properties on the side. He has a couple of 6-unit buildings and a few single units in the building he lives in. He has goals of retiring early, and he doesn't believe a 9-to-5 will get him there. He does have loans that he had to take out for some of these, but a few of them are almost paid off, and others will be paid off in years to come. So basically the snowball effect. Sometimes these properties need repairs done, as they are not all brand new. Furnace problems, pipe leak, etc. And he pays for these repairs from the extra money he gets from rent. And he is really doing well with this, I have to say. But my parents hate this. They say I will never be able to live a normal life with him being up to his neck in loans. They say he will bankrupt us, and we will never be able to afford nice things or vacations or raising children because he is wasting money on buying properties. No matter how many times I explain how they will be paid off or anything else, they just simply don't care. This one, I guess I can understand where they might be coming from, because I get that landlords often are not well liked. And while I won't be getting into that, I also get why my parents might be apprehensive about this. I was on the edge at first too before he went through it all with me. Investing is not for everyone. It is risky, but that's why you have accountants and other professionals to help you make smart moves. We have to go through our finances. We made a budget, and we will always be able to live a comfortable life and still enjoy the things that we love to do. Now today, this is where I was truly annoyed. My mom said that she can't stand the sight of him, and every time she sees him, she gets on edge because of how much she thinks he is wrong for me. She said she hates the way he treats me, and I was so confused by this. He has never treated me badly. Truly, I have never even seen him upset or mad. He has never raised his voice at me, so truly, I was so confused. She said he makes too many jokes and messes with me too much, but I just want to reiterate, we have the same sense of humor. We like to joke with each other and mess around. This is how I show my love, and he is the same. We have plenty of normal adult conversations, but we do have fun and joke with each other. My mom said this is unacceptable, and he must act like an adult and be obsessed with me. She said it's an embarrassment, and if anyone heard it, they would feel bad for me. But this is just so dramatic. I understand being blind to things because you are in love, but this is just not the case. If anything, I'm worse than him. I make more jokes than he does. He's never said anything actually mean to me. I've never been hurt by anything he has said. To me, it is the reason I love our relationship and I love him. It is my favorite part of our relationship, to be honest. But she doesn't care about what I like, only that she doesn't. To make things even more confusing, my parents' relationship is literally this as well. Our whole family is like this. We all joke with each other all the time. I also have to add that she in general is upset that I'm getting married. She is scared to lose me and says she will not make it when I leave. Instead of being happy for me, she is acting like I'm dying. But seriously, I will only be an hour away, and I'm still going to visit every week if I can. I would look at their points all objectively if I didn't realize a few years ago that they are kind of helicopter parents. Not fully, but some aspects of it. This is something that I slowly started realizing when I started college. I realized that I found it very difficult to make my own decisions without feeling like I need to consult them first. I needed approval for everything. I had a huge fear of disappointing them, and I still do to an extent, but I'm working on it and learning to be my own person as I am an adult. Whenever I try to make my own decisions, it doesn't necessarily turn out the best, and they use it against me and say that's why I should have consulted them first. But mistakes are how you learn. That's life. I can't ask them for their opinion about every single decision I make for the rest of my life. That is seriously not healthy. There are some other things I've started realizing too, but for now I'll leave it there. I will say that I know they probably don't realize they're like this, and they think they're just being protective parents with my best interest, but instead it has negatively impacted me in many ways. So seriously, how do I handle this situation? It is making me lose the excitement of being engaged and planning a wedding. I want them to be happy for me, and they're just not. not. They fake it most of the time, and I will think that maybe they finally have started to like him, but then days like today happen, and I realize that absolutely no progress has been made. In fact, I think it is maybe even worse after today. I truly don't understand what they want from him. He has gone out of his way our whole relationship to bond with them. He brings my mom treats and flowers. He hangs out with my dad, even making plans with just the two of them to bond more. And I do feel bad, but I know it's all fake on their end, because they would never say any of this to his face. So honestly, am I overreacting? Am I blind in love and I don't notice these things? Or are they just being dramatic? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think based on what you've described, you literally have like the perfect fiance. This guy runs his own business, he's successful, he's driven, he loves you, he's respectful to your parents. Like, this guy checks all the boxes. So it's like, wait a second, why don't your parents like him? Because in my opinion, it kind of seems like because you're moving away, they automatically don't like him at all. Like, that's what this might be all about in my opinion, because everything you've described doesn't sound like a bad fiance. And it really seems like you could be married to anybody and they would still find fault to be like, wow, I don't like him. So from my perspective, I don't think you're overreacting at all. I think you have a good partner in life, and it seems like you guys have a good plan in front of you. So the fact that your parents don't see this perfect future husband that you're gonna marry, in my opinion, is truly tragic, and that is something they're gonna have to work through. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My toxic relative basically robs me of my entire inheritance after my dad passes away, as they literally worked around the clock to make sure they would get as much stuff away from me as possible. Here's what happened. So my dad had a stroke back in February of 2022. My older brother and I rushed him to the hospital immediately. We then immediately started calling family members, as my dad was 79 at the time. His two brothers, who we will call Charlie and Connor, didn't even ask about what happened or what my dad's condition was upon hearing about the stroke. They just wanted to know where dad's will was, especially Connor, because he demanded that we find the will and get it in his hands as soon as possible. After transferring dad to another more advanced facility, it was eventually determined that dad would be confined to a bed for the rest of his life, and that he would be nonverbal and might be able to recognize those closest to him. Dad had made his desires in this matter quite clear. He didn't want to live like that after my mom suffered a similar fate. So with heavy hearts, my older brother and I made the decision to discontinue life support, and my dad passed away the following month. At the continued demand of our uncles, we searched for my dad's will and couldn't find it following a thorough search of dad's house. But eventually one day the will turned up, and it was haphazardly atop a stack of paperwork that we had already searched. The will listed our uncle Charlie as the executor. The key parts of the will was how my dad's business was divided. Charlie would get 60%, my older brother would get 20%, and my younger brother and I would get 10% each. Additionally, Charlie would get my deceased uncle's antique Chrysler, as well as my dad's 57 Chevy race car for the rest of his life, where it will be returned to my brother and I after his passing. My dad's house was initially supposed to go to my older brother's ex-girlfriend and daughter. However, for reasons I'm not sure of, my dad changed the will to have the house sold and the proceeds be split between my brothers and myself. Now, Charlie's first act as executor was to consolidate all of dad's accounts into an estate account, dismiss the employees, and shut my brother and I out of the business. Charlie continued to run the business solo for about a month and paid himself out of the estate account until he eventually shut the business down entirely and requested the presence of my brother and I for a meeting. In this meeting, he offered to relinquish his 60% life interest in exchange for complete ownership of the aforementioned vehicles so that he could pass it on to his kids. Initially, we agreed to this, well, until we saw the agreement that they had their attorney draft. In this agreement, there was an indemnity clause that states we couldn't hold him responsible for anything he has done, is doing, or will do as the executor, including breaching the agreement. We attempted to negotiate the terms of the contract, but he refused further negotiation. After some time, he began selling estate assets to pay for debts, including a parcel for real estate that we thought might be sold for far less than what it was worth. Well, Charlie refused to discuss it and proceeded anyways. My brothers and I requested assistance from an attorney to figure out what our other options are. We eventually brought the estate into litigation, including filing to protect the real estate. Charlie sought representation through a large law firm and had 3 attorneys assigned to the case. Ultimately, we couldn't do anything and had to let a lot of things go. The assets for the business were sold off for chump change. Charlie purchased the 2 vehicles directly off of the estate, even though the sale of these assets were never announced. Eventually, it got to the point where the only major property that was left was real estate. There were 4 properties in total, and 3 of them were occupied by people, and the law firm was eyeing one of the occupied properties to sell first. First, in order to save the properties, I offered to buy my dad's house from the estate in order to settle the estate. And this was initially about $50,000. After we signed the initial agreement, it went before a judge where it had been in litigation to okay the agreement. But that's where my brother's ex-girlfriend objected to it, even though she never showed up to prior court-ordered mediation. And so because of that, we went right back to mediation. And of course, I have to pay for round 2 of this mediation. The judge appointed a guardian for the minor, and they ultimately demanded $10,000 for the minor to be placed in a trust account until she turns 18. And the ex-girlfriend wanted $3,000. So that got tacked onto my mortgage. And so it all just went back and forth, and it honestly cost me so much money. Eventually, I finally closed on my house, but my God, I kind of feel used. My older brother and my wife are the only ones that have been consistently sticking by me on this, as everyone else has just disappeared. And I'm honestly so disappointed by how everything went down. Oh man, this story sucks for so many reasons. People can change overnight the second any money's involved in some kind of like estate settlement thing. Like seriously, this is so unfair the way Charlie treated you. Like you did not deserve that in the slightest. So hopefully you're able to move forward from this, because being stuck in situations like this, especially with family members, in my opinion, is absolutely the worst. Am I the jerk for asking my roommates why they didn't ask me to move out with them? Because right now I feel incredibly left out, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I've lived with my 3 other roommates for the last 2 years. One of my roommates, who we will call Amy, has not been the best roommate this year. She had not treated her cat very well, where she was underfeeding due to the cost of the food, and leaving her alone for days at a time to stay with her boyfriend, and thus making the animal incredibly anxious. Amy also had not been great at cleaning. We all have an agreement on rotation for who's cleaning, and she consistently either cleaned hers late or would only halfway clean it and then ticked it off anyways. When brought up to Amy, she would say that she was stressed, but she would do her best in the future. But it never really resolved itself. My second roommate by the name of Sarah was the most irritated by this behavior, with my third roommate, who we will call Mary, being very unimpressed by the entire situation. 2 days ago, Sarah called a house meeting where Sarah and Mary informed both Amy and I that they had decided to move out and they would be leaving at the end of the lease in February. And to be completely honest, I am upset. Less due to the fact that they're leaving, I mean that is their right, but it really comes down to the fact that I was being left with Amy. She cannot afford to live without me. However, I would prefer to move out on my own under the circumstances. I've already spoken to Amy that this is what I would prefer, and I honestly feel awful. I told Sarah and Mary how hurt I was for not having a heads up, but both of them said they had wished to wait until they were fully decided and that this was the best for their mental health to leave. Now, where I think I was the jerk was when I privately messaged them, asking specifically why they didn't ask me. I mean, I can only assume they have a problem with me as well. I brought up the fact that I paid the bond outright without argument because none of them can, and that this feels like I've been stabbed in the back. I feel like a total jerk, but I also feel like they were a jerk first. Then, a day later, I told them, in the same chat that they did not reply in, that I would not like to speak to them for the time being, just so I don't say anything else that I might regret. My other friend thinks that if this is what's best for Sarah and Mary, then as their friend, I should support them. But my friends at work, however, think that Sarah and Mary were complete jerks. I have plans of moving out as soon as I get a lease. I will, of course, pay rent to the share house until our lease is up, but I plan on taking all my stuff with me, and I only own the TV and the fridge as it is. My friends have stated that taking the communal used fridge would be me being the jerk again, as all 3 of them will be without access to a personal fridge, but I would prefer to move as soon as possible. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This is so weird. First of all, I would not feel bad about leaving Amy high and dry, because she does not sound like a good roommate. I get that you guys are like somewhat friends, but at this point you really need to look out for yourself. Sarah and Mary are clearly doing their own thing, so why should you be stuck living with someone you obviously don't want to live with? And when it comes to the TV and the fridge, guess what? That's your property. If they don't like the fact that they're not going to have a fridge, then they can buy their own and have something that they can use. Like, I'm really not sure why you're getting so bent out of shape over this. They've clearly made their decision, so go ahead and make yours. Because at the end of the day, you deserve to have a good place to live that doesn't have toxic roommates. And from the sounds of it, all 3 of these women absolutely fit the bill. My entitled friend made my brother and I spend close to $200 on food and drinks, whereas she only spent $7. And even though she paid me back eventually after I begged her to do so, I now feel very used by my friend. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my friend and I only live 20 minutes away from each other, but we also come from very different socioeconomic backgrounds. She comes from a not so well-off family, whereas I come from an upper middle class family. I'm telling you this because because I think she believes it's okay to mooch off my brother and I since we're so well off. However, I work a minimum wage job and so does my brother. Our parents are rich, but we are not. I've told my friend a few times already that I have to pay for all my gas and electric bills. I may not have to work about a place to stay, but any bills and spending money is all on me. Because her house is not so nice, she always comes over to my house, and I honestly don't mind. However, since she currently doesn't have a job, she'll want to stay for 8 to 9 hours at a time. I work and go to school, so I'm a very busy girl. A few nights ago, my brother and I went to a bar, and she wanted to get fries. And I wanted to tell her no, since bar food is expensive, but I chose not to. After all, she would pay her share of it, right? Well, the tab ended up being $100, and she didn't offer to pay for any of it. We then got boba right after, and it would have been a great opportunity for her to buy me and my brother some boba, but of course she only bought herself some. We then got food a little while after that as it was planned, and it ended up being about $50 for all of our food. And guess what? I paid for all of that. She said she was going to send me her half, but she never did. So I told her the day after to send it to me, and she did. My brother and I spent close to $200 that night, and if I hadn't told her to give me her share, she would have only paid like $7 for her boba. So at this point, I really feel used by my friend, and I now don't know what to do. Oh man, this is kind of crappy, and I can completely understand you feeling kind of jaded about this. Like seriously, your friend really should have stepped up and paid for her share at the bar. And sure, she paid for it after the fact, but I think setting some clear boundaries would really do some good in the future, because the way your friend acted was super selfish, and you and your brother did not deserve that in the slightest. My boss really puts the micro in micromanagement, as he is quite literally one of the worst people to ever work for. Here's what happened. Okay, so I think we've all had that type of manager that I'm going to describe. That one type of manager who would take corporate policy way too literally, or who would let huge things slide, but little things would get you yelled at, or the ones that would somehow insist on being part of a 30-second process that turns into a 5-minute task when they help. But my manager, who we will call John, this guy literally put the micro in micromanager. To his credit, he was a pretty good manager overall, meaning that he had a solid work ethic. But he was one of those that always acted laid back and friendly with the guests, but was on us for every little thing. If you would show up 10 minutes early all month, he would never notice. But if you were 2 minutes late, you would get passive-aggressive comments about how traffic didn't seem that bad when he was coming in. And just to be clear, we were all casual dining, but his one thing he was awful about was your table being perfectly cleaned at the end of your shift. Now, of course, a clean section is important, but this one habit of his truly made me think this guy needed to spend some time in therapy. Normally, your closer or shift lead wanted to check your section before you left, but if John was on, it had to be him. He would feel along every surface. He would literally get on his knees to check under the table. He would count to make sure you had the exact number of sugar, sweet and low, and Splenda packets available for customers. But the thing I will never forget was the salt and pepper shakers. He would pull out a ruler and measure. There had to be exactly 1 millimeter of open space between the metal part of the shaker and the rest. If there was too much or too little, he would make you change it. Like literally, he would make you go back and get like 1/10 of a spoon of salt and add it to your shaker. He would turn what normally took 30 seconds to do into a 10-minute project. And just to be clear, none of this was from the general manager or corporate policy. This was the hill that he decided to die on. I will never understand it. I'd be willing to bet my entire bank account that no customer in the history of restaurant history has ever complained or even considered their salt shaker being too low. Because honestly, the way this guy acted was super annoying. Okay, this story really strikes a chord with me, because seriously, I can't stand managers who act this way. I've dealt with micromanagers many times in my past, and they are always awful. They never help the situation get resolved, and if anything, everything just comes to a screeching halt. Especially when it comes to something that you definitely know how to do. Like that for me is the worst part about micromanagers, because you literally know how to do this, but they're inserting their stupid opinion and it makes it impossible to do anything. So the fact that this guy was literally measuring salt and pepper shakers, as well as meticulously looking around your section, making sure it's perfect and that everything's exactly the way he wants it. Like that is so weird and so obnoxious. If I was in your shoes, I would get super pissed off as well, because clearly you know what you're doing. And the fact that he's getting so weird about stuff like this, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. My toxic sister tried to get her manager fired by calling the police and making a false claim about her, as she did this in some delusional desire that she would get promoted to manager if she took out her current manager in some kind of spectacular way. But instead, everything backfired, as she was fired Monday morning on the spot after my manager found out exactly what my sister tried to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, out, my sister had to leave my country because of crime. She was a manager in a certain type of industry here, but couldn't get a job in the same industry once she was living in another country because she couldn't get a good industry reference because of crime. Now, my sister loves to read, so she applied for a job in a bookshop. She aced the interview and she was eventually hired. She then shows up Monday morning, meets her new manager, and gets shown around the job. Her new manager is a young woman of about 24 years old, and she's worked in the shop since she was about 16 when she was part-time. She kept working there and was eventually promoted to manager. And this is how it should be with the natural progression of a job. My sister was 32 years old at the time and had been told growing up that because she was the oldest of us kids, she was in charge and more important. But it was really due to the fact that she was a sociopath and acted horrible if she wasn't treated like the only person in the world. But she was always told her prominence was because she was the eldest. So she automatically believed that if she was older than you, she was automatically better than you. So in her head, she's older than the manager, so therefore she should be in charge. On the third day that she worked there, the manager approached my sister and told her that the current part-time worker was turning 18 on Saturday. However, he was going out to dinner with his family on Saturday before meeting his friends in the pub and heading out to the nightclub. Therefore, the shop was bringing him out for drinks on the Friday night after work. And my sister was more than welcome to go. In fact, she really should go, and it would be a great team bonding opportunity. She can meet everybody and everyone can meet her, and they can all be friends together. My sister then said no, sorry, but she already had plans. It was a bit short notice, but she'll definitely go out next time. Well, my sister sat at home drinking vodka that Friday night, and at some point, a plan formed. Drunk out of her mind and dumb as she is, she put her plan into action. In her head, as the eldest, if she can mess up her manager's life and get her fired, then my sister will automatically be made the manager because she's the eldest. And she was once a manager in her own country in a completely different industry. She has no experience in a bookshop, but clearly as the eldest, she deserves to be a manager. So her bright idea was to call the police and report her manager for buying alcohol for a minor. But here's the thing, the drinking age in her new country was 18 years old. The police showed up at about 11:30 p.m. on the Friday night, which is about a half an hour before he turned 18, and there was nothing that anyone could do. The minor was kicked out of the pub for being underage, and nothing else happened to anyone because it was clear that the report itself was vindictive. The police then gave the manager my sister's name and told her that my sister was the one who reported her. Well, fast forward to Monday morning, and my sister was absolutely shocked when she was fired right there on the spot. So truly, my sister is a piece of work, and I seriously don't think that she will ever learn her lesson. Wow, your sister sucks. I'm just gonna say that straight up. You mean to tell me in her mind she really thought she could pull something like this off, even though she's only worked at that place for what, 3 days or something like that? Like seriously, this is so weird. Just because she's older than someone doesn't mean she's more qualified. Like that is really dumb, and you can see the type of person that she really is. She's so vindictive and weird, she would rather ruin someone else's life by lying about them instead of, I don't know, working hard and becoming a manager herself. So yeah, your sister is not the brightest apple in the bunch. She literally tried to ruin someone else's life, all under the delusional assumption that she would take their job. And that, in my opinion, is absolutely toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to change the music at my store? All because some crazy jerk demanded that I do so. Here's what happened. So I work customer service at the local store. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning on the first Saturday of the month, which anyone who shops at a large grocery store should know that it is the busiest day. Anyways, I'm just standing at the counter helping customers who need it, and that's when this big, bulky guy comes in, who is the male Karen of this story. And he is about what you would expect. His hair is blindingly blonde, face covered in wrinkles, even though he's probably only 30 years old. I just think to myself, oh boy, here we go. And I put on my best fake customer service smile. I say to him, good morning, what can I help you with? To which this male Karen responds in probably the rudest tone possible by saying, I need you to change the music. It is horrible. Now, initially, I'm confused. I don't have any music playing, but then it clicks. He's talking about the store music we play over the loudspeakers. I then say to him, sorry, sir, no can do. The music we play here is set in stone. If there's anything I can help you with, that's what I'm here for. Well, you can probably guess how he reacted. Full on rage, yelling and screaming and all this other stuff. Now, I'd been working customer service for the better part of 4 years now, and I knew how to deal with people like this. I say to him, sir, I've already informed you we cannot change the music, and now you're holding up the line and causing a scene. So if you don't calm down, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the store. Well, he responds with more screaming. I couldn't make out much, but what I did understand understand was him basically saying, "So you know who I am? I'm a close friend of the manager and I demand to be treated like it," or something like that. But I wasn't having any of it. We have a special thing for occasions like this, and it's basically a little microphone that connects to the manager's office. I then say, "Hey, we have a guy here who's saying he knows you. Do you mind coming down and confirming or denying?" I say this over the mic and the manager comes down, sees this guy screaming at me, and then immediately calls for security to escort him out. I thankfully never saw that guy again, and honestly, I am incredibly happy about that. Oh man, that is so unbelievably embarrassing, it's not even funny. I mean, the fact that this guy was like, "Oh, I know the manager, you need to treat me like it." It's like, are you kidding me? That never works no matter where you go. Like seriously, that is so dumb and annoying. But thankfully, you don't have to deal with this guy anymore because this guy's behavior was absolutely atrocious. Today, I messed up by grabbing a paper bag to pack my leftover food from a restaurant, thinking that it's provided by the restaurant. But much to my dismay and embarrassment, I actually stole from a lady who was packing her food at the same time. And even though it's just a brown paper bag, I honestly feel so humiliated by this situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a couple of days ago when I was on a weekend trip. In a national park, there were only a few places to eat, and one of the restaurants had a long waiting time. We're talking 30 minutes or more for a burger and fries. Once I placed the order on the kiosk, I realized they have a backlog for 30 orders just based on the order number alone. I could see the queue moving slowly, so I got busy playing games on my phone while I waited. By the time my order was ready, I couldn't remember if I ordered to go or dine in, as the order receipt had no mention of if it was to go or to dine in. The food pickup counter was managed by a single person as well, so I asked the employee if he could pack them up to go, and he did say something, but I couldn't hear him in all the chaos. I didn't want to be rude and ask again, so I just took my food and decided to quickly finish my burger and grab fries in the burger wrapping paper to make the best of the situation. Now, just as I finished the burger and was about to go, I noticed a family putting food in brown paper bags at the counter where the restaurant puts ketchup, paper napkins, forks, and spoons, etc. Well, I suddenly felt that employee on the food pickup counter must have said something about doing it myself from the counter like this family's doing. Now, there were a couple of brown paper bags on the counter while they were packing their own food, so I grabbed one from the pile, and the lady looked at me with an expression that didn't look happy. I thought she might have felt that I'm not waiting for my turn, but I really just didn't mind it. I packed my fries and then I left the counter. Now, I did feel like something is wrong, but I didn't care and I just walked out of the restaurant. As I was waiting to cross the road to get back to the parking lot, I noticed that family walking out of the restaurant with their food and an extra brown paper bag in the lady's hand. And eureka, that's when I suddenly realized what I had done. Those paper bags were not provided by the restaurant. The woman brought it in for herself and I'm just grabbing one without even realizing it. Luckily, there was only one way to get to the parking lot, so I waited for them to catch up with me. I sincerely apologized to the lady and I explained my mistake. Now, this nice lady said that it's okay and not to worry. I then thanked them and I walked back to my car. I got inside and then I ate my fries dipped in complete embarrassment, because this really will be a situation that I won't be living down anytime soon. Oh man, that really is super embarrassing. First of all, the restaurant really should have some kind of bag that you can use to like pack up all your stuff, because that really is super annoying. But also, I don't think it's completely out of the ordinary that you would think, oh yeah, these brown paper bags must be for customers, right? Like, yeah, it's a bit weird that she would bring in her own paper bags to this restaurant, but I guess if she has a family, then maybe she was like planning ahead. But it's like, wait a second, that's such a weird thing to plan for. But thankfully, she didn't really care that much, because if this lady was some other psychopath, then this could have ended very poorly. My ex-boyfriend cheated on me and then dumped me, picking some woman he met online over me. So I decided to get some petty revenge by spamming him with emails in a way that he truly will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so a few years ago, I dated a guy for almost 2 years. For context, we started dating when I was 18 and he was 24. And whatever opinions you're forming about this guy, you're probably correct. Now, we broke up because he cheated on me with a girl that he met through a video game. He flew her down to visit days after I moved out. Mind you, I did not do the math that he had cheated until later, and he played the breakup off like he was setting me free. I mean, this guy was an absolute loser. Anyways, less than a year after the breakup, I started getting emails from Zillow notifying me that he was liking houses from a neighboring state. For those that don't know, Zillow has or had a feature where you can shop houses and then your roommates can compare notes. And I found this especially interesting with what I did next. At first, I was just going to sever the connection and move on, but this was a prime opportunity. I then spent the next 2 weeks liking extravagant and expensive houses in Denver, Colorado, knowing that he was getting the same emails. And then at the 2-week mark, I deleted him from my account. Now, I had spent the next couple of years just assuming it maybe at least bugged him, but I chatted with a mutual friend recently who told me that it really bugged him. Now, it may not be true true. The mutual knew how awful he was to me, so he may have hammed it up just to make me feel better, but my god, do I feel better, because this guy truly was a piece of work. Wow, I love this kind of revenge because it's petty and incredibly subtle, because you know for a fact this guy was probably inundated with emails and messages all about these stupid houses that he could never afford, and I really love that because it probably like threw a wrench in his wheel in a way that he probably was not expecting. So good for you for getting some beautiful revenge, because this guy absolutely deserved it. My friend's entitled ex-boyfriend dumps her out of nowhere after literally discussing their future together and leading her on to believe that they were going to get married. So we decided to get some petty revenge by moving out everything that she owned from their shared apartment, leaving this guy with quite literally nothing to his name. Here's what happened. Several years ago, my best friend was unexpectedly dumped by her boyfriend of 3 years. This man had told her that he loved her, had been talking about marriage, had encouraged her to quit her job and go back to school, and gave every appearance that he wanted to care for her. A couple of weeks after she resigned from her job and applied for her master's degree, he abruptly informed her that he had never loved her and that it was over. We then later found out that he had cheated on her. Now, of course, my friend was blindsided and hysterical, but Hades hath no fury like a woman's support circle. She gathered herself and decided fairly quickly that she would not be able to stay in the apartment with him, and he agreed that she should move out, despite her having nowhere to go and no income. She calls me and a few of her family members to come help her move, and we do so within a 12-hour period while the ex is crashing at his brother's for the day. Well, here's the kicker, of course. As is apparently somewhat typical of men in their younger 20s, this man had not contributed to furnishing this shared apartment. Every stick of furniture down to the mattress belonged to my friend. Every dish, every towel, every piece of decoration, every single appliance, I mean, if you named it, it was hers. So we took it all out. Even the mattress and the shower curtain. We left that man with nothing at all, except for a TV tray, a dog bowl, his Xbox, and a sword, which was the sole bit of decoration he had contributed. My final touch was to throw the wheeled ring under the microwave tray on top of the kitchen cabinets and to leave an onion hidden at the top of the closet. I also had the pleasure of telling this guy off when he tried to reach out after seeing the dog bowl living situation. My friend moved in with me and slept in my dining room for a month while gathering up her life. She now has her master's and is happily engaged. Last we heard of the ex, he was dating someone twice his age, and despite attempting many times, he never became a cop either. But it just goes to show you that good friends should be there for each other, especially when it's hard. Yeah, I love stories like this because this friend absolutely needed your help. Their boyfriend basically betrayed their trust and left them out to dry, and that truly is not fair. So good for you guys for getting some petty revenge against this guy, because he absolutely deserved it. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend's friend's fiance that I didn't pay for the couples trip that we all went on? Because right now there's been a massive fallout, and right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I went on a trip with my boyfriend and his friend along with his fiance. This whole thing happened last weekend, and the fallout is still active. I was told the fiance planned the cabin trip, and this was my first time meeting her, so upon meeting her, I said thanks for planning everything. The cabin was so beautiful, it was a great location, the amenities were amazing, so it was a great choice on her part. I'm gushing over her planning skills, and I was asking for tips, as I'm in charge of planning a trip with my boyfriend in 5 weeks. The fiance casually mentions the price of the cabin, and that it was a steal, and that I'm sure I'm glad it was so cheap split 4 ways. Well, I told her it didn't make any difference as I wasn't paying anyways. She then got quiet when I said that for a few minutes, but we resumed the good vibe, so I didn't think anything of it. The whole weekend she's giving her fiance the cold shoulder, according to my boyfriend, and it turns into us 3 versus the friend, since she was hanging out with me most of the trip and my boyfriend liked to be under me too. Like, it was so bad that she'd sit with us on the sofa and make the fiance sit by himself in the recliner chair. Every time I went to the hot tub, she went. Or if we wanted to go on a morning walk, she would come too without waking her fiance. I didn't notice anything weird since this is my first time meeting and interacting with them, so I didn't understand how their relationship works. I just thought that maybe they're not affectionate. Fast forward to today, and my boyfriend gets a call from his friend pissed off that I told his fiance that I didn't pay anything. This apparently ruined his trip, as his fiance felt, and said this in private to him, that she felt embarrassed to sleep with him or be affectionate with him in front of us since I'm so well taken care of by my partner, and she doesn't feel the same. My boyfriend was in shock and is mostly a listener, so he didn't really defend me, but said to keep the peace, and he'll ask that I no longer discuss finances with his fiance. Now, I said okay, but I'm still wondering if I was the jerk for mentioning it on the trip. Everyone had already paid. We were already there to have a good time, so maybe I should have just focused on that instead of who paid for what. So honestly, am I the jerk in this this situation because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't think you did anything wrong here. Like, this really is not that big of a deal because this other lady is acting super weird. Like, seriously, it's not that big of a deal. So what if you didn't pay yourself? Just because your boyfriend took care of things doesn't mean that her fiance is somehow incompetent. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for saying that because honestly, it really was an innocent comment. My aunt is incredibly jealous of me, and despite finding this amusing early on, I'm now getting increasingly annoyed, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So one of my aunts seems to be jealous of me, and this is starting to get kind of annoying. This aunt of mine has never done anything in 40 years. She has studied economy at university for like 10 years, and she always says that she doesn't manage to find a job. She doesn't know how to properly cook, and there isn't a single field where she is good at. 2 months ago, thanks to an Italian government project, I managed to go to Ireland and work for nearly a month, which she was clearly jealous of. And you know, some years ago, I was like the loser of the family. I had no friends, I was never going out, and I also didn't like my body at all. But ever since 2 years ago, I've started to change, and now both my personality and my physique is very different. 2 years ago, I would not have had the courage to go for a month in another country. At first, I liked her clear jealousy, but now she is just annoying. Yesterday, she told me like 5 times that she doesn't like my hair, and it's like, who cares? Now, luckily, my 11-year-old cousin, who is her son, stepped in and said, well, I think your hair is cool. But despite my personality change, my self-esteem still relies on a lot of other people's opinions. So her comment has kind of made me sad, and I don't want to be sad because of a 40-year-old loser. So is it a common thing that your relatives are jealous of you? What should I do? Oh wow, that's really annoying. Like seriously, the fact that she's so openly jealous of you and treats you with such disdain, that in my opinion is super frustrating. I know for me personally, I like to just do my thing and not like brag or anything like that, and it sounds like you might be the same type of person. Like you're not going around flaunting all the good things you have in your life, and you just kind of like live your life and do your own thing. So the fact that your aunt is like up in your business and being like, oh wow, look at you, you're going to Ireland, I can't believe you. Like that does sound super annoying, and I don't blame you for getting frustrated. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would just completely ignore her and keep moving forward. She's clearly bitter because her life has led to nothing for her, and that at the end of the day is absolutely not your problem. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for letting my ex-girlfriend spend the night, all without telling my current girlfriend what was happening? Because right now my girlfriend is very pissed off at me and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old male and I'm in hot water with my girlfriend. We've been together for about 2 years and she's been good for me and helps me get out of my own way. We usually can communicate through issues, except for my ex with whom I have a child. My ex is our constant fight. My girlfriend and daughter get along fine, but not her and my ex. They've never had an easy relationship. Their first meeting didn't go well, and it was downhill between them from that point on. My ex and I were in the same friend group and dated throughout high school. Our relationship isn't perfect, but we are in a way better place, and we have found a groove that works for us co-parenting. Now, it's a routine that I spend New Year's Eve with my ex. Our daughter always wants to watch the ball drop with both of us present. We take turns hosting, and this New Year's Eve was my turn. When I host, my girlfriend usually attends, but she was away visiting family. She invited me, but I chose to keep my arrangement with my daughter. We got drenched on New Year's Eve. The usual routine is that my ex or myself will head home sometime after the ball, but the rain was so bad. I wasn't comfortable sending my ex out, so I asked her to spend the night. Now, I tried telling my girlfriend, but I just couldn't reach her, and I now know that she had a spotty signal. Well, we didn't speak until the morning, and before I could say anything, she overheard my ex in the background with our daughter, and when she heard that, my girlfriend was pissed. I asked to discuss it later, since I didn't think it was best to talk about it in front of my daughter. Well, when I said that, she hung up on me. When we finally talked again, we argued. She felt it was inappropriate for my ex to have stayed over and accused me of bailing on visiting her family so I could be with my ex instead. But here's the thing, nothing happened. We hung out with our daughter for a while after the ball. Then I went to my room and my ex to our daughter's. My girlfriend said I set the scene for something to happen, and for all she knows, my ex came to my room after our daughter went to bed. She asked me how I would feel if she had an ex stay over, but I don't think that's a fair comparison. The circumstances are different. This isn't as black and white. I told her that I love and respect her, but I wasn't going to send the mother of my child out in a rainstorm. She then said that she wished that I chose her like I choose my ex. We're now left at an impasse. I feel my girlfriend's too biased to see anything clearly past my ex, as she feels that my ex doesn't respect our relationship and oversteps her boundaries. Now, I have never seen her this upset where we couldn't talk, and it's making me second guess how I handle things. So truly, am I the jerk for asking my ex to spend the night? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, yeah, you're absolutely the jerk. This is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. Like, this is just a rainstorm. You know she can drive in the rain, right? It is wildly inappropriate for you to be like, oh, you can sleep at our house if you want. It's like, what are you doing, man? Get her out of there. Because your girlfriend is 100% right. You literally chose your ex over your own girlfriend. Like, seriously, what are you doing here? That is so dumb, and in my opinion, your girlfriend is absolutely justified to be angry. An entitled Karen comes into my store that is going out of business, demanding that we give her 50% off an item that she wants, claiming that we're going out of business anyways, so it shouldn't matter if she gets a bit of a discount. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entitled Karen's attitude, and I seriously hope I never deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a big box store that is going out of business. We have signs up all around the store with what is discounted and by how much, and furniture is 10% off, and we just can't change that. Well, a woman walks in who is the entitled Karen of this story and heads directly to the furniture. She looks at a bed and dresser set, and after a few moments walks to the register and skips the line of 4 other people to talk to me. She points at the bed and says, I want that bed. I look at her and I say, well, I can have somebody from furniture help you out, as I do need the tag on it, so let me call one of them to bring it to me. And mind you, I'm still checking people out while she's talking to me. My coworker brings me the tag and explains to the customer that it is a set and that it cannot be split up. This Karen then asks to be checked out, and I explain that she needs to wait in line. So she glares at the line of people and says, fine. I then hear her complaining the entire time, all about how she is in a rush while we're taking care of other people's groceries and other odd things. Finally, she gets up to the front and I finally ring up her order. Well, I tell her the price, and she looks at me and says, I don't want the set, I just want the bed and the headboard only. But again, I explained to her that it is a set and it cannot be split up. But at this point, she then started yelling at me. Well, you're going out of business, so give it to me 50% off. And when she said that, I honestly was dumbfounded. And I explained that this isn't how it works. I ask her if she wants furniture, then she needs to see if they can find something similar so that it's just the bed and the headboard. Well, she looks at me and says, no, I looked online and there's nothing close to what I want. So just give me the bed because I'm not leaving without just the bed. I then just radio the furniture section and I tell her, well, okay. And then I move over one computer and I call for the next customer. Now the look on that lady's face as she yelled at me for being unprofessional was absolutely great. The furniture section guy walks over and tries to talk to the woman, but she just kept yelling about how she was glad this place was going out of business and that this is why she never shopped here. And after that, she then left in a fit of rage. But fast forward a few hours and things get even better. One of my coworkers walks up to me and shows me a picture of a bed and a headboard that are sitting by themselves in the back that was tagged wrong in the system. It was then that he told me that if she would have just waited, he would have gone, checked, and found it all for her. So it just goes to show you that if you're just a bit kinder, then things might work out in your favor. Oh my gosh, I cannot stand people who act like this because this is so ridiculous. First of all, she cut in front of everybody and is like, oh, I need a price check right now. Drop what you're doing and go check on it immediately. And it's like, oh, okay, let me ignore the 4 other people that were before you. That's no problem. Let me abandon my register and check this for you, lady. Like, what are we talking about here? So that for me signals like, oh yeah, this lady sucks and nothing will ever make her happy. But also the fact that she literally was trying to be like, oh, you need to give me 50% off because you guys are going out of business. Never mind the fact that the original poster's about to lose their job. But it's like, are you kidding me right now? The average employee cannot just change the price out of nowhere. But the best part about this is that this Karen could have gotten exactly what she wanted if she was just patient and acted a little bit more decently. Like seriously, this is so dumb. She caused all of these problems for literally no reason. So yeah, this Karen was completely out of line, and if she just acted rational and didn't pretend like she was in a rush, then maybe she would have gotten exactly what she wanted. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for letting my friend know that I bought my own Christmas present all because my husband forgot to get mine on time? Because right now he's saying that I made him look bad, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. The first year that I was married, my husband asked me what I would like for Christmas. I only had a couple of short winter coats, so I wanted a long one, and I told him I found one online that was about $100, and then I sent him the link. Well, come Christmas Day, I got a couple of small gifts, and I asked if he got me the coat. He said no, as he couldn't find the link that I sent him, so I just said okay, and I bought it myself. It arrived quickly enough that I had it for New Year's Eve, so I wore it out. My friend asked me if it was new, and I said yes. I bought it for my Christmas present. She then asked me why my husband didn't get it for me, and I just looked at him him, waiting for him to respond. Now, I didn't think it was my place to answer for him since he was standing there, so I just let him tell her the reason. He then told her a completely different answer of how I just forgot, and she just shook her head at him and laughed a little bit. When she walked away, I asked him, okay, well, was that a lie? Or did he really just forget because he told me that he lost the link? He then got mad and said I put him on the spot, and I told him I didn't think it was my place to answer for him since he was right there. He was then mad at me for the rest of the night because he said I made him look bad in front of our friend. He did apologize later, but I'm just wondering, was I the jerk for not just making something up and saving his ego? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, personally, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, because in that scenario, he kind of just made himself look bad. Instead of being like, oh yeah, I forgot to get it, haha, let's just kind of brush it under the rug, or at least something of that nature, he decided to lie to her and try to turn it against his wife. Like, that's really weird and there's no reason for that. Like, seriously, it's just not that nice to like blame someone else for his mistake. So no, you're not the jerk here, and I honestly think your husband is absolutely at fault. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance that he shouldn't be giving part of his inheritance to his mom? Because I feel that she is just guilt-tripping her kid, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So when my fiance's parents first moved in together as husband and wife, they moved into one of my fiance's paternal grandparents' properties, a single detached home in a very high cost of living area. For some reason, my in-laws never put the house in their name. It always stayed under the grandparents' name, even though my in-laws lived there for 25 years and raised 4 children there, namely my fiance and his 3 sisters. 3 years ago, my father-in-law tragically and suddenly passed away. Without going into detail, it's important to note that my fiance's grandparents blame my mother-in-law for his passing, even though it's absolutely not her fault, and they have never forgiven her as a result. After my father-in-law passed away, it became clear that my mother-in-law would have to move out of the house since it wasn't in her name, and she ended up moving into another home that she and my father-in-law have been flipping before his death. Now, my fiance's grandparents have decided to sell the house and told their grandchildren, namely my fiance and his sisters, that the proceeds will be split equally amongst the 4 of them, and they stated specifically that the money was to go to them and not to their mother. Now, this inheritance would be absolutely life-changing for us. My fiance and I are working so hard to save for a house in one of the most expensive real estate markets. We're also planning our wedding and also trying to help with his sister's wedding expenses, as we are both in the bridal party. On top of that, my fiance has student loans to pay off. We are just starting out and we're trying to build a future in a very high cost of living city where every dollar counts. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law doesn't need this money. She and my father-in-law owned a property management company and have several rental properties and other assets that could easily be sold if she's in a financial need. And yet, when she found out about the inheritance, she guilted her kids, saying the money should belong to her and that each of them owes her at least 20% of their share, meaning that she would end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, here's where things went sideways. My fiance agrees with her. He feels responsible for helping his mom now that his dad is gone and insists that we should give her the money. I told him the inheritance is meant for us and that it's not hers to take, but he's adamant about helping her out. I then got upset and told him I don't think it's fair for her to guilt trip him like this when she knows we're trying to save for our future. Well, now he's saying that I'm the jerk for not wanting to help his mom and that I'm being selfish for prioritizing our goals over her well-being. I feel like I'm stuck in an impossible situation, but I just can't shake the frustration of seeing this money. It's meant for my fiance and his siblings, and it's going to someone who doesn't actually need it. So am I the jerk for getting upset at my fiance and not wanting to give part of his inheritance to his mom? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, even though you do mean well and you're trying to like, I don't know, save up for your life and all that, I do think you're the jerk in this situation. Because honestly, this is not your money. Yes, it went to your fiance, but it's not yours. So for right now, he can do whatever he pleases with it. So yes, I do think you're the jerk here, and I think you might need to reel it in, because this money is for him to spend however he pleases. My entitled boss chews me and my team out for not having the best numbers in our previous month. So I decided to get some petty revenge by cheating to win at a chili cook-off that our company was holding, resulting in this guy losing in spectacular fashion. Here's what happened. So this was many years ago at a horrible call center job. The management was complete garbage at this place, especially one guy. He was my boss's boss. Every year, his greatest achievement was winning the chili cook-off. People hyped up his chili all year long. It was always a landslide, to the point where hardly anybody even bothered to enter. He had a slow cooking process, used actual marinated steak, and one of his secret ingredients was a dark beer. I mean, this was a really complicated process. The prize was even a $100 gift card to his favorite fancy restaurant as well. Now, just before the contest, he took my team aside and chewed all of us out about our numbers leftovers from the previous month without even accounting for the fact that one of our senior team members was out for that entire month, all because of a death in the family. And it's like, okay, well, way to make the rest of us feel like garbage and motivate us to work harder, you jerk. It's typical toxic middle management crap, and it was par for the course with this jerk. Well, this is when I decided to have some petty revenge. The day of the chili cook-off, I bought a big crock pot from home, and I went to a nearby popular fast food chain on my 15-minute break. I ordered 3 large chilies and I threw them in the crock pot. The only way I changed it was by adding the green onions and sour cream they gave you at the time as a garnish and mixing it up. Well, I brought it into the office and I set it up, and I won by a landslide. Within a few months, I got a better paying job and I moved on. But on my way out of that garbage job, I told him exactly how I won. And the look on his face was absolutely priceless, and I honestly treasure it to this day. Oh man, I love this. I love this so much. First of all, middle management can honestly be the worst. They're typically full of micromanagers unless they're actually cool. And if they're cool, then they're fantastic managers. They understand this is just a job and everybody gets along great. So while you did have to answer to him at work, I think it's absolutely hilarious where you hit him exactly where it hurts. And the fact that you told him how you won before leaving, in my opinion, is just icing on the cake. An entitled Karen cuts the line at a bakery, literally cutting in front of dozens of people just to be first. So I decided to get some petty revenge by sabotaging her order in a way that made her wait longer than she anticipated. And it honestly felt so good to get back at her. Here's what happened. So a few weeks ago, I was at my go-to bakery that always has a long line on the weekends. Now, I had already been standing there for about 15 minutes when this woman, who is your classic Karen, just walks right up to the counter like she owns the place. And yes, she just totally ignored everybody else in line. Someone behind me tried to say something like, there's a line, but this Karen fires back and says, well, I'm in a hurry, and then acts like that's somehow okay. Well, the staff didn't want to argue, so they just took her order first. Now, I was mad, but I decided to keep my mouth shut for now. Then I noticed what she ordered, a large iced coffee with extra whipped cream, and that's when I got an idea. When it was finally my turn, I ordered the exact same thing, but asked them to hold it for just a second. As the Karen strutted out with her drink, I casually walked back to the counter and was like, hey, I think she grabbed my coffee by accident. And I said it loud enough for everybody to hear. The staff then got all apologetic, and the Karen had to come back inside with a smug look on her face, looking not so smug anymore. She then had to wait for them to remake her drink while I left sipping mine and smiling like an idiot. And sure, it was definitely petty, but I think that it was absolutely worth it. Oh my gosh, if I actually saw that in person, I would lose my mind. I'm pretty sure I would walk out of that coffee shop and be like, oh, I'm never coming back to this crap. Seriously, the fact that they're like, oh, we don't want to argue with you, so we're just gonna take your order. Like, are you kidding me right now? This is why people act this way. This is why we have Karens in the first place. If the person at that front counter just grew a backbone and was like, oh no, that's not happening, then all of this could have been avoided. Like if I was in line and I watched this lady strut to the front and be like, I'm in a hurry, sorry, I'm not gonna wait on the line, I would be a very unhappy camper, especially at a place that's obviously very busy. So honestly, with all things considered, I love the petty revenge he threw her way, because this Karen's attitude deserved to be punished. Am I overreacting? After my boyfriend asked me to give back a white elephant gift that we stole at a party, because right now one of his coworkers is furious with us, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So yesterday, my boyfriend and I went to his work's Christmas party. We went bowling and played white elephant that had a $25 limit. The way they played was everybody drew numbers to determine the order of who was choosing gifts. Then, after everybody opened one, they went backwards through the numbers to get the chance to either keep the gift you opened or steal one from someone else. Now, my boyfriend brought a gift and I didn't, so I wasn't really planning on participating in the white elephant. When it gets to my boyfriend's turn, he chooses a gift. When he opened it, it was obviously pretty low effort. It had a beer from their work and a gram of the herb, if you know what I mean, which by the way, it's completely legal in our state. Now, one of the presents his coworker opened was an anime sweater and a bunch of lottery tickets. I mentioned I liked the sweater, and when it came to his turn to steal, he took it so that he could have the lottery tickets and said out loud in front of everybody, my girl likes the sweater, so that's going to her. Well, the other lady he stole from ended up with the beer and the herb, and she was obviously very upset at the end of the game and was ranting to their managers about how stupid the gift she ended up with was and how they should tell the person who brought it they shouldn't have even participated. Well, now today is the day after the party, and my boyfriend just messaged me while he's at work that apparently the girl told him that he was on her crap list, and he asked if he could just give her the sweater since she was so upset about it. He even offered to buy me a new sweater if I gave her that one, but I think she's honestly acting like a brat, and he's rewarding bratty behavior. I also feel like, considering considering what he said when he took the gift, that it makes it look like he cares more about this girl at work's feelings more than mine. So am I overreacting by being weirded out by this? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, this coworker is so weird. They are clearly not mature enough to participate in this gift exchange, because that's just how the white elephant gift exchange goes. Like seriously, did she not know what she was getting into? She obviously did if she was participating. So in my opinion, I think your boyfriend would be an idiot to give it back to that lady, especially if she's trying to be like, wow, you're on my crap list. It's like, okay, what kind of list is that? Should I talk to HR? Like, what is going on right now? How is this okay behavior? And sure, she got a crappy gift, but like, that's how it goes with these kind of things. You can either end up with something really fun or something really stupid. So no, you're not overreacting, and I think your boyfriend would be wise to ignore her and just be like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, because the way his coworker is acting, in my opinion, is a complete overreaction. Am I the jerk after I refused to give my sister the gift that she opened at Christmas that was definitely meant for my mother? Because she's been acting incredibly weird lately, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this Christmas, we all went to my parents' house. My sister came with her husband, and they have 2 kids who I love and spoil rotten. My mother asked for a heated blanket this Christmas, and because it's always very complicated to buy shared gifts, I told my sister and father I was buying one for her. When we started opening presents, I realized that my sister and her husband had opened the blanket. They looked at the label, and sure enough, that's exactly what they did. They finally gave the blanket to my mom, and we opened the rest of the presents. Afterwards, my sister kept saying how she was sad that the heated blanket wasn't for her, and then was looking to see my reaction. Now the thing is, 2 years ago, she kept complaining that she was freezing and wanted a heated blanket for Christmas. So I bought her a heated blanket, and a few weeks later, she said she wasn't cold anymore and wanted me to give her a specific shirt instead. Well, I tried to keep the peace and return the blanket, and I gave her the shirt for her birthday. Now back to Christmas, and my mom let my sister use her new blanket, and every time she would see me, she would go on and on about how she loved it and how she wished that she had one. Then my mother said that she should ask me one for her birthday. Now I kept my mouth shut the first few times, but then said, you are not getting another blanket from me. Now at that point, they said she had just made a mistake not keeping the gift. They were even saying to me, oh come on, just give it to her, stating that she opened it by mistake and that she was all excited. Now I was more than a little bit annoyed, and I just straight up said, well, you had your chance and I gave you a heated blanket like you wanted, and then you didn't want it anymore. So if you want one, then buy it yourself or ask someone else, because I learned my lesson. Now I really thought this was all over, but a few days ago, my mother told me she was looking for a heated blanket for my sister since I apparently wasn't buying her one. But I said, well, that's right, but also please stop talking about it. At this point, I may be the jerk because I'm keeping a grudge and my sister wants the gift that she opened by mistake. On the other hand, what's really keeping me from giving it to her is that I don't think she is grateful, and it is very possible that she would once again change her mind if I give in. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your sister's being super weird. First of all, if she really wanted to be like, oh wow, I'm not cold anymore, I don't want a heated blanket, get me a shirt instead, I would have shut her down and been like, I'm not buying you a different gift. Because honestly, it seems like she's only doing this to try and like get under your skin and control and manipulate you. This is weird behavior, by the way. This is not normal. And I'm not entirely convinced that she opened that gift by mistake. She knew it was a heated blanket and she opened it on purpose, in my opinion. All under the assumption of, well, maybe you'll just give it to me for free. Maybe I can take this gift and have it for myself. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified by being frustrated by your sister, because her behavior, in my opinion, is incredibly weird. Am I the jerk for refusing to watch my neighbor's kid before school? All because the mom kept nagging me about how I was handling her daughter. Because at this point, I'm honestly annoyed and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 35-year-old female and I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. I have a son by the name of John who's 10 years old and a daughter who we will call Ava that's 8 years old. My neighbor, who we will call Zoe, is 42 years old and she works full-time and asked me at the beginning of the school year if she could drop her daughter off, who we will call Sue, an hour before school started twice a week. Now Sue is 9 years old and I agreed and was happy to help out a neighbor. However, things got bad pretty quickly. My kids do not get along well with Sue and they see entertaining her as a chore. Both of my kids enjoy sports, arts, and playing outside, while Sue is glued on her phone. Despite this, Sue pouts when my kids do their own thing instead of trying to engage with her. Well, Zoe called me a few weeks into the school year to nag me for having the kids walk or bike to school, saying it was unsafe and asking me to drive Sue. Well, when she said this, I told her no. If Sue was old enough to have a phone, then she was old enough to walk or bike to school. A week later, she asked me to cook real sausage for Sue, in addition to the veggie sausage that I make for my kids. Because for reference, my husband and I don't eat meat. But again, I told her no. Sue could eat what I cook, but if she wanted something specific, then she would have to prepare it for herself. For the first semester of school, Zoe nagged me with similar requests. She didn't want me to play songs with explicit lyrics. She didn't want to let multiple kids on the trampoline simultaneously. She wanted me to watch the kids when they're outside, etc. and so on. When I refused, she was respectful and would be like, well, sorry to bother you, but she still had new requests every week. At the end of the semester, I told her I was not going to make adjustments to our family lifestyle and inconvenience my family for the sake of her child. Sue's safety was not at risk. If she was unsatisfied with Sue's situation, there were plenty of other people in the neighborhood who could watch her. Zoe seemed really receptive, and I was hopeful that would be the end of her nagging. Well, when my kids got home on December 20th, I asked, well, are you excited for 2.5 weeks of no school? And my son John responded by saying, I'm more excited for 2.5 weeks with no Sue. Ava even nodded and giggled along, and it broke my heart to know that they were more happy to get a break from Sue than school. Just a couple of days ago, Zoe reached out to me, thanking me for agreeing to watch Sue and asking if I could watch her a couple of afternoons a week in addition so that Zoe could have some me time. I told her this would no longer work as our kids did not mesh well and I didn't want to deal with more inappropriate demands. I thought Zoe might be mad, but instead she begged me to watch Sue at least one morning a week. She apologized profusely and said I could parent however I wanted to. This made me feel bad because she genuinely needed my help and did not know what she would do. But I told her I knew I could and that her apology was too little too late. Now, my husband and the kids stand by my decision, but some of the other moms think that I should have been more accommodating, saying that I'm selfish, that moms help moms, and that I'll never know when I might need help. So am I at fault here? What should I do? No, you're not at fault here. This is so stupid. Zoe clearly is like a micromanaging parent, and she's trying to like dictate what you can and can't do at that house. And if she really is having these many problems with her kid being over at your house, then maybe take your kid somewhere else. Go over to one of those parents trying to virtue signal towards the original poster. Like if they really are so high and mighty and trying to act like, oh, we've got to help each other out, then they can pony up and start watching Sue instead of you. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is honestly so weird. And I think if I was in your shoes, I would have cut off this arrangement a lot sooner. My insane neighbors are demanding that I get rid of my dogs, all because they think they're disgusting and that they're a nuisance to the neighborhood. But after exhausting every single avenue, from petitions all the way to the city council, my neighbors decide to get up in my face and approach me on my property, causing me to freak out on them in a way that they truly never expected. And I've honestly never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by emphasizing that this event happened 5 years ago, but it's something that I regularly think about. My family, which is me, my husband, and my 2 kids, lived in a very new suburb in a private sort of neighborhood. It was a closed neighborhood, meaning that there was one way in and one way out. Behind us was a street of houses, and across the road from those houses was this very large and new park. It had all the play and sport equipment possible, including skate ramps and a basketball court. For the first year and a half we were living there, it was so nice and peaceful, as the houses behind us were still under construction and no one was living there. Then one day the neighbors moved in and everything started to fall apart. I would describe these neighbors as a couple, a husband and wife, who were newly retired and around my parents' age. And trust me, the list of things they did is massive. For starters, they put in formal complaints with our town council because our dogs barked. They went to the trouble of recording those things rather than coming around and chatting with us about it bothering them. Both my neighbor and I were probably the only ones with large breed dogs with the purpose of being guard dogs because our husbands traveled a lot for work and the dogs made us feel safe. And I was pregnant and a new mom at the time. I wasn't working and I could vouch that these dogs only barked when there were people at the fence. And we're talking people like delivery people or someone approaching the house. So it really is just very standard dog stuff and not just yapping for the sake of making noise. When I received my complaint, I actually knocked on their door to chat about it and found they had a very thick accent and was not native to our country. So I put on my award-winning retail smile and I gave them a rundown on social etiquette in this country. They also absolutely hounded and bullied my neighbor religiously. One time when we went away, we organized for a friend to stay with our pets to keep the barking to a minimum. And during this time away, we learned that the neighbors demanded to inspect our dogs. Well, my neighbor brought her dog out on a lead and my friend said, "You're not meeting the dogs or stepping foot on the property. There is a border collie and a bulldog, both registered and compliant with the law and council." The response of the couple was demanding to know why we need such large dogs, while also demanding that we should get rid of them. They were told they were delusional and to leave before the cops were notified. This couple even tried to send out a petition to have our dogs removed, but everybody refused to sign it, explaining that they don't have issues and to stop causing problems. And I even think one of my neighbors reported their attempt at a petition. They bullied my neighbor so bad that she rehomed her dog. She wasn't doing well emotionally for quite some time, and this neighbor and her husband even found a device in their garden in the back corner of their yard. They never put the device there, and I don't know exactly what it was, but apparently it's a device that can either stop a dog from barking or annoy them to bark more. Now, because they put a shock collar on their dog, they believe the devices canceled one another out, so they felt like their attempts with their dog was sabotaged. Because of the large park across the road from their house, they tried getting a petition signed to have a curfew enforced on the park and a very large fence built around it, and I think quite a lot of people laughed at that ludicrousy. After my neighbor's dog was gone, they tried coming for me, but I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but I am much tougher and I don't tolerate nonsense from others. And by this time, I absolutely hated these people with a passion. So one morning, my husband had an early day at work where he left at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he left our dogs in the backyard. Because others were leaving for work, it triggered our dogs to bark, and they woke me and our 3-month-old baby up. And luckily, the toddler didn't wake up. I messaged my husband straight away as I was pissed off, and he thankfully hasn't done it ever since. Well, at about 7:30 a.m., I am in my mid-breakfast routine with my 3-year-old kid and also giving the baby another feed when there is a knock at the door. Now, I'm still in my pajamas and a bit disheveled, and I try to be friendly when opening the door, and the husband was there clearly pissed off. When he explains why he is here, that he was woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I profusely apologized. I explained my husband did that, and the barking woke me and the baby up. I then told him that I got on my husband's case about it, and I said that it won't happen again. Well, this guy was super agitated. He said to me, "It's time for your dogs to go. They are mongrels, nuisances, and they should be destroyed." Now, at this point, all the built-up frustration towards them finally exploded, and I ripped him a new one. I straight up said to him, "Who in the world do you think you are to tell me how my family and my pets are going to live on this property, or even dictate my pet situation? You've been here 5 minutes and you have a lot of nerve. Clearly, suburban life is not working for you and your wife, so kindly do us a solid and get lost to a retirement village." Now, the whole time, my dogs were barking at him, and he was trying to shut them up, so I just said to him, "Sir, they will stop barking once you leave. You're on their turf and they deem you as a threat to their human." He tried to conclude by saying that the council will hear about this, but my baby was crying by that time, so I concluded by saying, "If you'll excuse me, I'm clearly busy. You are ugly. Have the day that you deserve. And if you're so adamant on going to the council, then I will complain to the police for intimidation and harassment. They take complaints against foreigners very seriously." Even though that last part I did kind of BS, but I was just trying to call his bluff. I then said to him, "Smile for the property camera." I then slammed the door, and I never had any issues ever again. Fast forward, and 3 months later we moved, as my husband's work was relocating him. When I tell people about this, they think I'm making it up, but I'm not. And I'm always curious to know if this behavior from them was an entitled thing to do, because honestly, those neighbors were the absolute worst. Oh man, these neighbors really were toxic. Aside from the moment where like the dogs are barking at 4 in the morning, I think you guys were completely in the right. Obviously, the 4 o'clock in the morning thing was like a complete accident, and like that's gonna happen every now and then. But you have every right to have as many dogs as you want, or to have as big of a dog as you want. And if these people don't like it, well then congratulations. That's their problem to figure out and not yours. But I really love this story because it shows very clearly that yes, you absolutely can stand up for yourself. Because the way these people were acting towards you, in my opinion, was absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My aunt and cousin treat me like absolute garbage, as they've literally turned my mom against me and have made my life a living nightmare. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I honestly just want someone else's perspective on this, as I feel like I'm going crazy. For context, I went on a holiday with my aunts and siblings a year ago. My aunt got into a physical altercation and cornered me with her daughter. They both then beat on me and denied it when my siblings and parents got involved. Luckily, my sister was there to witness it all, but my mom did not believe me and could not fathom the thought of her sister doing that to me. Her sister claimed that I was a liar and that no such thing ever happened. Now, I accepted and kindly told her that she didn't need to cut off her family, but to respect me and to not mention anything to do with me to them anymore. Months went on and my mother came to me saying, "Just speak to them like normal. They're your family." But I just refused to do so. Getting physically attacked without an apology or acknowledgement of wrongdoing was just something I was not willing to do, because I found it easier to cut ties with them completely. Well, 1 year later, and I had an incident where I had a mental breakdown and I got just a bit too drunk. And my mom ran off and cried to the same aunt and cousin that attacked me, to which my cousin, who I haven't spoken to in over a year, has spun my mom's head with lies about what I've been up to in college. Now, I've been completely no contact with her. No mutuals, no socials, no nothing. And this has taunted my mom's relationship and I, where my mom has excused me of various horrible things and used it as an excuse to re-trigger me with traumatic things that I've been through. It is also exam season, and they're all aware that I have an exam that counts to about 50% of my grade, but it has been nothing but constant fighting this month. She couldn't taunt me directly, so she chose the next best thing. Her daughter claims to study the exact same college course as me to other family members, but she hasn't completed high school qualifications. She doesn't work or anything. I mean, she's literally just an addict. I also later found WhatsApp messages between my mother and that aunt, to which my mother stated, "I hope my daughter leaves. She's a lady of the night," and so forth and so on. My mother even got my aunt on the phone, to which she screamed at me on speakerphone, "You're a liar. We don't want you. We moved away from you a long time ago. Please leave me alone." And it's like, am I going insane here? Because this honestly is so disturbing and I now don't know what to do. Wow, these people suck. Not just your aunt, your cousin, but your mom and even your sister. You mean to tell me your sister saw these people literally attack you and she didn't even come to your defense? Like, what's going on right now? You had a witness that saw all of this go down and she's just conveniently staying quiet? Like, that sucks so much it's not even funny. But when it comes to your mom and your aunt, honestly, I think they're just cut from the same cloth. It really seems like they're all on the same side here, even if your aunt is more vocal than your mom is. So hopefully you're able to get away from them and have your own life, because what you're experiencing right now is super toxic, and in my opinion, I don't think this is normal in the slightest. An entitled Karen runs out on her check at our restaurant, saying that our general manager will take care of the bill. And I'm honestly blown away by this lady's behavior, and it truly makes me wonder why people act this way in the first place. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that I've had a doozy of a day today, and the subject of this story is going to be called the entitled Karen. Now, this Karen is the first guest of this morning. She walks in and the host offers her a booth in the bar area. Well, this Karen immediately refuses, saying that she doesn't want to sit at the bar. The host says, "No problem, I'll get you a table." But instead of waiting literally 30 seconds, this Karen starts wandering around the restaurant. She then comes up to me and my coworker and demands by saying, "Can't you guys seat me at an actual table? I don't want to sit in the bar." Right as she finishes, the host runs up with the menus and silverware for her. She tries to sit her at a table, but this Karen says, "No, I don't want a table, I want a booth." The host then tries to seat her at a half booth in my section, but this Karen snaps at her, "I want a full booth." So we get her sat down and she's now seated at my full booth. When I greet her, she starts by saying, "Go find someone to clean this booth, it's dirty." Mind you, it just had a few crumbs on the seat, if that. So I wring out a sanitizer rag, I wipe it down and let her know I'll give her a few minutes to look over the menu. 3 minutes later, I return to take her order, but she cuts me off and says, "Are you not going to dry it for me?" And seriously, it wasn't even wet. It was just shiny from the sanitizer, but I'm not about to argue with this lady. So I grab a paper towel and I dry it off, even though the table was definitely not wet. When it comes time for her order, she orders some hot water, a glass of water with no ice, which she didn't even drink by the way, and also a soup and a salad. She complains the soup has too many noodles in it, so I comp her for it, and then over the next 2.5 hours, she orders 3 refills of salad, 12 breadsticks, 4 sides of mashed potatoes, 2 sides of broccoli, and 3 plates of grated cheese. And she didn't even touch 2 of the cheese plates. When she's done, she boxes everything up and says, "I'll be back." And then she leaves her glasses and headphones, so I assume she's in the bathroom or something like that. Well, 20 minutes passes by, and the host checks the bathroom to see if she's okay. When she finally returns, she grabs her things and starts walking out, but I stop her and I say, "Ma'am, you can pay with me or on the kiosk." She responds by saying, "Yes, I'm going to pay," but she still tries to walk away again. But I stop her and I repeat, "No, you need to pay with me or the kiosk." She then suddenly changes her story. "Oh, but I thought I already paid." She then starts fiddling with the kiosk, so I assume that she's handling it and step away to greet another table. Next thing I know, she's fast walking out the door. The host catches her in the lobby and tells her, "You need to pay your server." But this entitled Karen insists, "No, I already paid." And then after a brief back and forth, she finally bolts out the door. I check the table and I find a note that says David is paying. And for reference, David is my general manager. When I bring this up to him, he said he has no idea who this crazy woman is and apologized that I had to deal with her. Now, I know I shouldn't let it bother me, but she wasted so much of my time. I could have turned that table over twice, but instead instead, I dealt with her nonsense. And this honestly makes me wonder why people act like this. Okay, this is super sketchy, but probably not for any reason you might be thinking, because I'm willing to bet that David, the general manager, absolutely knew who this lady was. Like seriously, put on your tinfoil hat with me real quick and just imagine the possibilities here. Doesn't this sound like some crazy ex-girlfriend behavior or something along those lines? Like seriously, for me it kind of fits the bill. She came into this restaurant and treated everybody like garbage. She made as many problems as she possibly could. She was rude to the servers and the host. And then when it was all said and done, she ran out of there without even paying, while leaving a note that says David's picking up the bill. And sure, maybe it's a stretch, but that's just my weird conspiracy theory here, because I can't think of any other reason why this lady would even know who David is in the first place, and also feel confident that he was going to handle the situation. So either David really doesn't know who this lady is, or he's covering up and being like, oh my god, she showed up at where I work. But either way, this lady was completely insane, and that is absolutely unbelievable that you had to deal with that. And the fact that she got away with dining and dashing is truly just a massive waste of time. My overly attached adult sibling quite literally will not move out after living with me for 4 years. And now I'm at an impasse because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 38-year-old female and I have a younger half-sister who is 27 who is currently living with me. And obviously being siblings, I've known my sister for 27 years. She is extremely clingy to the point of making me very uncomfortable. For a bit of context, my sister and I have had a close relationship for most of her teenage and adult life. We are 2 out of 5 siblings, myself being the oldest and she being the 4th sibling. Honestly, being about 11 years older and being raised primarily with my full-blood sister, I didn't really pay attention to her as a child, but according to her, she always looked up to me. She became a full-time part of my life when she was 15 years old and I was in my early 20s. I had been married since I was 19, and about 5 years into my marriage, my sister moved in with me, my now ex-husband, and our 5-year-old daughter. And she moved in due to personal problems she was having with our mother. I figured I could use the help at home as I worked full-time, and she would get some distance from what was a complicated and messy situation. But after that, she lived with me. Even after my divorce when I was 28 years old, she continued to live with me when I moved in with my boyfriend, who's now my ex-boyfriend, for 2 years. But she fought with my ex all the time until I finally kicked her out and sent her back to our mother. Well, it turns out she was right about my ex after she was gone because he turned all of that rage towards me. I did not talk to my sister for 2 years, but finally, after getting some much needed counseling and doing some serious personal work, I broke up with this guy. The day that I broke up with my ex, I called my mom, apologized to my sister, and she was directly back in my life. When I eventually started a new relationship, my sister made friends with my then boyfriend, who is now my husband, and she became very close with my preteen daughter, who's now 17 as well. She began to attend college and lived in her own apartment 2 towns from where my husband and I had bought our house, and would visit me from time to time, and we had a good relationship. Well, in early 2021, my sister quit her job. She dropped out of college and she lost her apartment. She called me upset, looking for help, and me, trying to be the helpful sister that I am, talked it over with my husband and then told her she could stay with me and my family at our house for a few months. In late 2021, my husband and I decided that we needed to move to Florida so that we could take care of my mother-in-law. My sister begged and insisted on moving to Florida with us, and she said she wanted to get out of our home state. She didn't have any close friends, and she had always wanted to live in Florida, and she wanted to start her life again fresh. My husband and I said no at first, and then later, after several conversations, we agreed that she could come with us on the direct understanding that she would get a job, her driver's license, and move into her own place within a year of the move. My sister did get a job as a CNA, but 3 years later, and she still lives with us. My husband helped her get her license, and we even sold her our second vehicle. She has on occasion acted like she's going to move out, and then suddenly she has no money and just simply can't do it. Now, the uncomfortable part that I mentioned is that she won't make any friends, so I'm her only friend. She acts like she's my daughter, and even goes to the point of telling my actual daughter how she wishes that I was her mother. Now, I've told her directly that I'm her older sister, and that the idea that I would have had her when I was 11 honestly creeps me out. She tries to act like my husband and I are her parents in public. For reference, her father was not around and passed away when she was young. She says that our mother is a mess and she is embarrassed by her. I have told my sister that she needs to get out into life instead of working and staying at home all the time. She needs friends her own age, and she needs to get her own place. We have had hour-long conversations that turn into hour-long fights over and over again. These arguments always end up with me lecturing my sister and her her devolving into crying fits, saying she just wants to be like me and have a good life with a kind husband and children. When I point out she can't meet a man in her bedroom, she acts like a teenager and stalks off to her bedroom and slams the door. Now, I found out 7 months ago that my husband and I are going to have a baby. I'm 38 years old and my daughter is now 17, about to be 18 in a few months, and this took me a bit by surprise. My sister at first was super excited and she planned my baby shower and has been going to my doctor's appointments with me. Then out of nowhere in the last 2 weeks, as I entered my 3rd trimester of pregnancy, she's been acting more and more like a child. My sister has become extremely clingy to me. For example, I will get up in the morning, my sister will have to be in her room, and the second she hears my voice, she erupts from her bedroom to sit in the kitchen with me while I make breakfast. Then she will follow me around the house talking nonstop. Even when I head to the bathroom, she knocks on my door all day on and off. Even if I try to get some alone time in my room, I literally have to demand my privacy. My sister is always suddenly very snippy with my daughter and super needy around my husband, acting like she can't do anything on her own. Well, the last few days she has been way off. She will start talking to me a mile a minute about the baby, then direct the conversation on how she wants kids and a husband. She will talk and talk for 1 to 2 hours about how she might achieve this goal, from joining a gym to maybe taking classes in college again. She never mentions moving out and keeps circling on the same topics. I literally have to send her to her room to get a break. I told her she needs to get a counselor or something to help her figure her life out, as I'm not going to have time to devote to her in the future. She refuses to talk to a counselor at all, and she's outright hostile, saying things like, "I'm sorry if I'm being annoying," and then storming off to her room. The other day, she started throwing up in the bathroom, claiming that she was sick and needed me to come and take care of her. I told her I couldn't go near her if she was sick because I'm pregnant, and with her working in a nursing home, I believe that she may have had a real illness. I told her to go lay down, but she kept insisting I get her something for her nausea. I eventually had to call my husband at work and have him call her. He was finally able to get her to go lay down in her room, and when he got home from work, she insisted that she needed my husband to take her temperature because she was so sick. And this was very bizarre in his opinion, considering that because of her job, she should know basic procedures on how to take care of herself. Then the next day, my sister went out shopping for groceries and to run errands like nothing happened. If we lived near our mother, I would send her home, but I can't kick her out in a state where she knows no one and she refuses to go home. My husband and daughter are becoming very concerned for my sister's mental health, and frankly, so am I. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my god, this is a mess. Seriously, it sounds like your sister is completely dependent on you, and she's like completely aged backwards into like a child. So I think it's right that you're suggesting she needs like a counselor of some kind, because this behavior is not normal. This is like some really distressing stuff. It sounds like some serious mental health stuff is going on, and that, in my opinion, absolutely needs to be addressed. But the part that really is upsetting to me is that your sister just doesn't care that you're about to give birth. She's almost like trying to occupy all of your time, so you're focusing on her instead of, I don't know, focusing on your actual family, namely your husband and your soon-to-be adult daughter. So I can only speak to what I would do if I was in your situation, but if I was in your shoes, I would be like, okay, you've got 60 days to get out of here. And sure, I understand the hesitation. She's living in a state where she doesn't know anybody, and she's refusing to go home. But I know if I was in your situation, the alternative is a nightmare. She is literally taking up all of your time and energy. She's taking away from your family and literally pretending to be a child as if she can't take care of herself. And that crap would drive me insane. There's no way I would ever put up with that, let alone for 3 years. So sure, she doesn't know anybody in Florida, and maybe she doesn't want to go home, but if you tell her that she's gotta go, then that will definitely kick things into gear probably pretty quickly, either with moving back home or finding a place of her own. Because in my opinion, she has crossed so many boundaries that absolutely need to be enforced. And I'm willing to bet that you will find no peace in your life until something is changed in your favor. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.